his cabinet. The president said he wants to make the government lean, inexpensive and efficient.
During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted under the guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials. I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course.
Kenyans have continued to praise President William Ruto's decision to dissolve his cabinet in Nakuru County. This man says Ruto made the right decision.
Siku ya leo niko na furaha midhili ya tasa aliyotunukiwa mapacha. Hatua ya rais ya kuweza kuwafuta mawaziri wote ilikuwa ni kitu ambacho kilikuwa inastahili kifanyike jana. Na mimi ningependa kumwomba Rais William Samoei Ruto ya kwamba tarehe 25 mwezi wa 6 itangazwe kwamba national holiday kwa sababu ya wale vijana wanaitwa Gen Z. Siku ya leo imedhihirika kwamba vijana wa Kenya wameleta kitu ambacho kimeleta mabadiliko sio tu katika Kenya bali katika taifa na katika nchi yote ya Afrika. Akina Moses Kuria, akina Chulugui, watu walikuwa wanavaa saa ya shilingi milioni 1, mshipi ya 1700, viatu ya shilingi 1700, waende kabisa.
And in Makueni County, some Kenyans now want President Ruto to remove nominated leaders and women representative posts, saying that they are overrepresented.
Na namshukuru rais kwa ile jambo ametenda leo. Ruto, kindly, we don't need the nominated MCS, we don't need the nominated MPs, we don't need the nominated senators, and we don't need the women reps. They are being a burden to the common mwananchi. We don't need them. Kindly let him fire them. Burden ile ya salary kwa mwananchi yenye inaletwa na representation mingi. Just imagine, as a single citizen, you are being represented by an MCA, you are being represented by MP, you are being represented by women rep, you are being represented by a governor, you also being represented by those leaders from the national government who are retained after devolution was implemented.
The public fundraising appeals bill is to be published today. This follows President William Ruto's announcement on Thursday that the measures barring state and public officers from engaging in Harambee are ready.
On the measures week barring state and public officers from engaging in Harambees, I want to inform the country that the public fundraising appeals bill is for publication tomorrow. However, even with the progress we have made, I am acutely aware that the people of Kenya have very high expectations of me, and they believe that this administration can undertake the most extensive transformation in our nation's history.
Medical interns will not be demonstrating at Afya House today, having suspended the strike because of what they described as a gesture of goodwill. They've been camping and protesting at Afya House since Monday, expressing frustrations over years of waiting for their official posting after completion of their studies. However, the interns have said that they'll resume a day sit-in and night vigil at Afya House next Monday in the event that the internship crisis is not resolved over the weekend. In the meantime, they've said that they'll convene internally to deliberate on the next steps. Busia Senator Okoh Mtata has now called on President William Ruto to dissolve the Kenya Kwanza government and resign. Speaking in the Senate, Mtata said the president should go because Kenyans have lost faith in his government.
The entire Kenya Kwanza administration, led by Mr. Ruto, must vacate power. The call that Ruto must go is not an idle call. It's a call whose time has come. It's a call whose time has come. You cannot be told lies every day.
Senator Omtata.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Just have your seat. I made myself very clear on how we are going to conduct ourselves during debate on this motion. In as much as we suspended points of order, I said let us be responsible in the way we debate and let us be factual. You cannot call the president Mr. Ruto. This is not a Kamkunji. This is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Proceed.
Okay, I can call him Dr. Ruto. And President Ruto. I'm finishing. Dr. Ruto, His Excellency the President.
Proceed.
But he never ceased being a minister, so all those titles apply to him.
That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
.102.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyang.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes?
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Or should you have a lioness living in your bedroom? I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Nyeri Latifa, Muga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Baridi ni degree ngapi hapa?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot?
Yes.
He's the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe za baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry. Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, hawa watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This
Good morning this Friday. What's happening on the streets where you are this morning? From what I can see, we're getting into traffic hour later on, and it looks like we're just starting to build up in terms of movement here and there. It looks okay on Uhuru Highway. This coming all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through towards the city, out towards Westlands, and then on the Thika Superhighway, whatever is coming in hasn't started just yet. There's very little going on as you approach Pangani and then going towards the tunnel. We're likely to see lower levels of traffic as you get into the weekend. We'll see a lot of outbound traffic going out west and probably out east. We're going to have a look at that and see how it all comes through. Let's talk in the meantime on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yeah, mambo iko vipi?
Mimi, wacha nikwambie.
Niambie.
See now yesterday, I decided, let me just, after doing a few things, I took a walk. Boss, see I was stung by a bee. I just remembered. Because I touched where I was stung and I was not happy.
It was in the another region.
Where?
Ednah is asking which bee.
That other bee, we'll discuss
Where?
it later. This was actually a honey bee.
All right.
My friend.
Yes.
No. You see now, let me just shut up.
Okay, yes.
Anything I say moving forward will implicate me.
I actually wanted to ask which of the village ancestors you had offended. What's the problem?
Maybe they should tell me.
You
Because
just
the
go
bloody
for
thing, you know they die after they sting you, eh?
You know, they just sting you.
And then they become
die.
disemboweled.
Yeah, so iko shida.
My God, it was painful. I'd been
Yes,
stung.
yes.
I mean, when I was younger, I'd been stung. But now this one for yesterday.
So where was it? One singular bee?
Yeah, it was one bee.
That's what I'm saying. Village
Was there
uncle.
a swarm of bees nearby? Or
No.
was there a
It was
beehive
one
nearby?
It was okay. So I was walking where they are. There are a lot of bright flowers. Of course, now that there's nectar.
What do you
there.
do to the flower?
I was just walking in that general
That's what
area.
you say. Uh-huh.
My friend.
And the bee saw you.
No, it was actually.
Am I interfering in the story?
No, I know what you're doing.
This running commentary should stop.
I know what you're. I actually know what you're doing.
Okay, sorry. Okay, once upon a time.
Go on. So.
Which
part of the body did the bee sting?
On my knee.
Oh yes, knee.
Yeah.
Knee is painful.
It was very painful.
Knee is very painful.
And you sure it's a bee, not a wasp?
No, it was not a wasp. It was a bee.
And you sure it's not a snake?
I would know if it was a snake, CT.
Just asking.
And snakes don't sting.
Okay, Pole.
Pole.
Niapa.
This is what you would have done.
Pole.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Since I've been stuck. What? Okay, let me just keep quiet. What?
This story keeps just improving.
Better and better.
Morning story.
Me, I'm still talking about the honeybee.
Walk. Okay, so we leave it.
City, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I didn't go for a walk. I was not stung by a bee.
It has not been a while.
It has not been a while.
I'm glad that I provide you guys with such entertainment. I mean, if that was my purpose in life, then I'm grateful.
Yes. Your job is very well done.
By the way, we thank you.
No problem.
We are very grateful to you.
Okay. All right.
How are you this morning?
Me? Me, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I am well. Yesterday, after the dramatic afternoon.
In fact, it was after all of this that all this thing happened.
Oh, so you were walking now just to think,
Oh yeah, I shall do more.
That's why the discussions of the village uncles become relevant.
Oh yeah, wallow. Yeah,
where were you?
Where? In the estate. No, I sat by
which county is this?
Machakos. Quisha.
Did you say Woye Alfred Mutua?
I didn't. I said well done, Giuliani. That was the problem.
Sasa. Hii story tumemalizia hapa. Why?
That's the reason why.
Let me tell you what we shall be discussing today. Where? Ednah wapi kitu bwana? This Ednah of ours.
Ednah, meanwhile, is dressed in B colors.
It's a beehive of activity. She's a busybody. Professor Mansoor Saleh is the founding director at the Aga Khan University Cancer Center and Clinical Research Unit. Today being Friday, our Health Friday conversation will take place at 7 a.m. where we'll talk about clinical research and cancer care in Africa. And Professor Saleh will be joining us at 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock, yes, the president has done like that. Was the president going to do like this? After a long time, people are saying, yes, you just reshuffle this cabinet of yours. Now everybody gone home. We shall be talking about that. Cabinet has been dismissed. So what next? What next? So the Gen Z is it because of the Gen Z? Or have the Gen Z contributed to where we are at right now? What happens next? We'll have that conversation. We'll open the phone line so we can all discuss what happens next. And then at 9 o'clock, let's take what's happening in the country and give it a regional and a global perspective. Why Kenya should not invite anarchy and the importance of political stability. And this garden and other digital platforms, karibuni sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Hiya, Basi.
Brian Oginga says he's also in the jobless corner along the CSs and says, good morning to you. Okay, this is how we are starting, Abby. New Kenya is here, new dawn, says Jay Wangai. Good morning, everybody, Team Spice. Tulikuon. Unaleta CS hapa. We said, see you after cabinet is dissolved. We are back on Spice FM. Okay. Lameko Sebe says, good morning from Massachusetts. Gen Zs are the real deal, baby. Baby steps towards the right direction. That was also bold from the president. Onganyi Malala, good morning to you. Good morning, happy Friday. Anguka Nayo says Cecily Ongwen. Kesh Dani says good morning to all my fellow cabinet-less citizens. My goodness.
Where?
Jiba says good morning. Simon is saying good morning. I am a happy intern doctor. I am happy with Pastor Nganga and many others. Really. London is locked, says Hezekiah Willie. Sonnet says, hello, Team Spice. Hoping for a great session today. Well, let's do it. Bernard Kemo says, good morning. Nice move, Mr. President. Sam Kuria Waweru says, good morning. Lady Ndu, Professor CT, and Reverend Latiff.
Buona Shurasana.
Hallelujah. Leo says, good morning, Princess Ndu. Yes. Eric, City, and Ednah on this glorious Friday. Somebody said you can't be fired if you don't have a job.
Where?
And I'm not talking about Musalia.
Where? Hiya.
Joe Mungai says, good morning, greetings from Washington. The 2000 said, good morning. I say we are happy today, so happy. In Jesus' name. I am happy today, so happy. George Titer Mte says, good morning, folks from Germany. Penhauer says, good morning. Susie says, where? Sema Kenya being the most Googled country. We are trending even in Greenland.
Greenland is at the end of the earth.
Ukifika Greenland, true. It's over. Rashid Sharif says, good morning. Charles Ray is very happy. Bernard Okello's here. David Thiong, Omburu Kamau, Robert Marley, Hannington Chumba, Anthony Onyango, we see you. I'm just going through as fast as I can, guys. Kwame N says, good morning, fellow criminals. Jerry Mamba, Evelyn Yamachama, Omondi Vincent, Robinson Kisero, Dr. Venvik Livinus Onogu. That's very interesting. Also a Nigerian name, Onogu.
Dr. Venvik
is in Mombasa. And he says, Mombasa Ruto Hoye.
Hoye.
There you go. Lucky Okoth is also greeting. He says, it's a beautiful day. We pray for a better tomorrow. Givenji Gatobu is in from Nanyuki. Good morning to you. Willis says, good morning. Correct. Wen says, I've come to love this station and the content they produce. I'm listening from Shina. Ni hao, China, I think is what you meant to say. Ni hao to you too, how?
Ni hao.
Everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. We're getting into it. Karibu.
Very good. Final day of Proverbs from
Sao Tome et Principe.
Very good.
Right. Did you know that the first female High Court judge was sworn in 1982 in Kenya?
The first female High Court judge.
Her name was?
Yes. Her name was Effie Owuor. Yes. And do you know that the first female minister was sworn in 1995 in Kenya?
Female minister?
Yes.
Wow.
She was called Winifred Nyivamwin. Yes. And in 2001, the first female head of the civil service was appointed.
Sally Kosgei.
Yes, Dr. Sally Kosgei.
Yeah.
Those are many firsts. Yeah. And all these were in the so-called Nyayo era. Many firsts. Now we have a new awakening. We've done with the gender sensitivity. Now we're into the youth sensitivity. Right. Proverb. I was torn between three proverbs. I'm not going to mention them. I'll just mention the one I decided on. Okay? A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
Oh my God.
A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
No matter how fine, he's still a devil, and you'll only go to hell.
Devil is devil.
Devil na devil.
Is devil. Nice one. Headlines,
Very
please.
Nice one. On the front page of the Standard this morning. People power. The country has been in turmoil for weeks after the youth rose to reject the finance bill and push for good governance. After the protests, the cabinet has been dissolved, with the president promising a broad-based and inclusive executive and corruption-purging government. With a cabinet of cronies and political backers, Gen Z and observers are watching on who will be dropped or brought on board as the country waits to see if he will keep his word. So we will wait and see. This is off the backdrop of the headlines that the Standard had just a couple of days ago when it talked about the Last Supper. And there's the picture of the entire cabinet sitting round a table. And was it the last time? It was. That was actually a good win for the Standard there.
Nice one.
Very good story. Some of the other headlines. I have heard you. It's time for a fresh beginning. And of course, looking into why Ruto fired his cabinet. And next likely move to appease the Gen Z. Is it to appease the Gen Z or to just do the right thing? Economists purge welcome, but do more to ease the cost of living and restore investor confidence. There's quite a lot that the president has to do.
Okay.
Two done, more coming as Gen Z push on. They say, yeah, very good. However, tujamaliza bado. Tunasonga. Why they had to fail is on the front page of The Nation today, and there's pictures of all of the would-be fallen CSs. President Ruto yesterday fired all but one of his cabinet secretaries as he once again yielded to pressure from young Kenyans who have protested against unpopular taxes and extravagance by officials in the face of economic hardships by the majority. And while he hopes the move will help cool the heat in the country, it will no longer be business as usual, with his every step and decision under sharp scrutiny. There's a quote there from him. Upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and the Attorney General from the Cabinet of the Republic of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. That was an excerpt from his speech yesterday. Of course, we'll be looking into that into detail. Boon for travellers as EAC raises limits on untaxed personal items. Do you understand what I've just said? Okay.
Meaning there were certain items that were not taxed, now they've increased the value on some more.
Yeah.
So now, before you could go with one blanket free, now you can go with 3.
Exactly. Or if you had one pack of cigarettes, now you can go with 5.
Yes, like that.
The Director of Public Prosecution, Benson Ngonga, has been elected as the President of the Africa Prosecutors Association.
Good for him.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Well done.
Yes.
Audit criticizes shoddy work done to repair leaky roofs at JKIA in 175 million shilling contract. The most former CS told us the other day that, works at, JKIA were, onwards. Now,
Kali, tunasonga kwa new airport. Wachana hii mzee. Kula tu pesa yetu hapa. The Business Daily, CEO bonuses of top NSE firms dip to 738 million shillings. We looked at that story with the Nairobi, with the Safaricom CEO. The other headline here, end of the road for cabinet of dollar millionaires. President Ruto dismissed his entire cabinet with its combined net worth of at least 15.83 billion shillings, bringing an abrupt end to one of the most wealthy and unpopular group of ministers in Kenya's history. It says the 24-member team, comprising of 22 cabinet secretaries, the Attorney General, and the Secretary to the Cabinet, were sent home following weeks of anti-blah. We know that, okay? So the Africa Wealth Report 2022, released by the research firm New World Wealth and the Henley and Partners in Africa, indicated that Kenya had 8,500 individuals with a net worth of over $1 million. Knight Frank Wealth Report put the number of Kenyan dollar millionaires at 3,323. Most of President Ruto's ministers were also richer than the chief executive of the country's biggest companies, including the most profitable, Safaricom. For example, Musalia, who is the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, was retained alongside Deputy President. Regarding said his wealth is 800 millions. Musalia had said his wealth is what?
4 billion.
4. This 3 or 4?
4.
Yeah. So your story, and the other stories there. The other stories are okay. They're just the other story. What's in the
Star? Well, let me do the thing that I don't normally do. Started bang in the middle of the paper. Okay. It's the same story as you all have.
Okay.
Spared. Dissolution doesn't impact DP Rigathi Gachagua and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. I listened to you. Cabinet is fired. Ruto. Decision comes after reflection, listening to Kenyans, and after a holistic appraisal. All right. Then, top right-hand corner in teal green.
Teal.
Yes, now this is tragic and sad.
There's teal green on a Friday?
Yes.
Wow.
There is.
They didn't do burnt brown?
They didn't do burnt brown today?
No, it is teal green.
Wow. Okay.
I know that
so they're not doing siasa.
No, we've spoken about people who are tone deaf. I'm not colorblind. It is teal green.
Sawa.
Right? Yes. Judge Maanja to be cremated at Kariako on Saturday. Judges pay glowing tribute. Yes, this man did wonderful things for the judiciary. Yes, this man did wonderful and exemplary things for the judiciary.
Indeed.
There's a page where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 officers of the court have paid tribute. Supreme Court Judge William Okoh, former Chief Justice William Mutunga, Supreme Court Judge Isaac Lenaola, President of the Court of Appeal Daniel Musinga, Judge Boaz Olao, Judge Judith Omange, Appeal Court Judge Lydia Chode, Judge Luka Kimaru, High Court Judge JR Division, John Chigiti. Yes, Majanja was a legal revolutionary in defense of justice. I am in agreement. Yes.
Very good.
I am in agreement. Full agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
I have the People Daily and the Taifa Leo headlines. Which one should I go first with?
Taifa Leo.
Taifa Leo. Katika hatua iliyotajwa kama ya kijasiri, rais atimua mawaziri ambao walihusishwa na ujeuri. Now you think that tough words have come in. Ujeuri na ubadhirifu.
Me, I'm on rice.
Ujeuri is good. Ubadhirifu.
No, that one, they need to go up.
Yes, wamebadhirika.
Kabisa.
Ubadha what?
Ubadhirifu. Headline, afagia wote.
That one I know.
That's the headline.
Okay.
Afagia wote. And then there's a photo here of photos and mug shots of the various cabinet secretaries and a big dustbin here written siasa. Rais William Ruto aliwafuta kazi mawaziri wake wote kufuatia shinikizo kutoka kwa vijana ambao wamekuwa wakiandamana kupinga utawala wake. Okay?
What does utawala mean?
Rule. Rule. Utawala ni estate.
People live there. Is that not where people live?
The People Daily, in this Maandamano days, People Daily has been having these headlines.
Nice headlines.
Today's headline, good riddance.
And there's a picture, two pictures.
All of them.
And then look at the picture of the president.
All of them. And then, so this picture here is all the cabinet secretaries there, amidst the cries of Kenyans who lost their brave children for speaking against the insolence of his regime. President Ruto fires his cabinet, raising queries on his future at State House. He has fired the cabinet. Now the question is,
you mean who's remaining
where? How long are you going to stay there? And then there's a smaller headline there. Lonely at the top. Ruto retreats to face reality. They take a shot of yesterday after the president spoke, and he turned back now to get into
to walk back
to the office. So there's that shot of him walking away.
He's turned his back.
Right? So they say lonely at the top. Ruto retreats to face reality. Headline ya People Daily, wako kwenye moto.
Top.
Aya, tumia mambo ya traffic? Sawa, it's 26 minutes to 7. We're looking at those headlines in great detail shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Baba boy, gas imeisha, shopping imeisha, na ujue tokens bado zinalia.
Msupa, nipe mbao na 20 minutes.
Mbao, like 20 bob. 20 minutes, kwani kuna nini? Na ujue mimi nataka kupika haki.
Jaber, kwani ujui daka mamilini every 20 minutes, halafu wanapea na 10 million every 20 minutes, na hadi kuna 3 millionaires every hour.
Daka mamili virahisi. Uko na nafasi 3 ya kuwa millionaire kila hour. Usipitwe, cheza daka, ushike mita yako sasa. Chagua nambari zako 4 za bahati and win up to 10 million every 20 minutes. Nenda kwenye paybill 440440. Account, Spice, amount. Cheza na shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000 na ushinde mamilioni. Daka mita, kuwa bingwa.
Okay, traffic on the Thika Superhighway is just around the Pangani Tunnel, then getting out towards the CBD. Beyond that, we're not really seeing anything. Even on Kangunda Road, just little traffic coming through towards Outer Ring. At that junction, but it's come off the Eastern Bypass, nothing much popping as you get towards North Airport Road and then out towards Cabanas. We'll probably see more of it later. Still early pickings in terms of traffic this morning, but I think you'll be fine getting in and out of the city. Nothing happening. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Wende basi. Story ni moja tu leo.
Why Ruto fired his cabinet and next likely move to appease Gen Z. President William Ruto's decision to dissolve his entire cabinet has been interpreted by pundits as a strategy to redeem his dwindling popularity among Kenyans and the pressure mounted by Gen Z. In a bold move, Ruto's decision to fold his cabinet comes after a record 19 years when the third president, Mwai Kibaki, sent his cabinet packing in 2005 after 3.5 million Kenyans rejected the proposed draft constitution. Like Kibaki, who attributed his move to dissolve his cabinet with results of the referendum, Ruto yesterday attributed his decision to the recent events which formed the rage by the Gen Z. Following the results of the referendum, this is what Kibaki said in 2005, it has become necessary for me as the President of the Republic to reorganize my government to make it more cohesive and better able to serve Kenya. So, of course, now this is being likened to what President Ruto did yesterday. And he said, upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have, in line with the powers given to me, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and the Attorney General from the Cabinet of the Republic of Kenya, except for the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. The question is, where did the rain start beating Ruto's cabinet? Many would say from the jump. The minute he said, be vetted in Parliament, that was the mistake. Many would say. In the last cabinet, the president told them he was to blame for the mess in the country as he had put his trust and hope on the wrong people who in turn attributed to the aggression by Kenyans. He said, I am to blame because I trusted the wrong people. There has also been a major problem in the way we communicate with our people, and this has allowed our critics to spread the wrong propaganda and misinformation to our people. So, we can remember a time last year where he scolded his cabinet CSs and PSs, who he said had scanty information about their docket. Yeah. And I quote, I call many PSs and ask them what is going on here, and they have no clue. And this is your department, surely. That is a job that you have. You are not a messenger. You are not a security person. And you are not a photographer. You are not a watchman. You are the PS one. You are the PS or the minister, and you don't have information. How do you run a ministry, a department, or a parastatal if you have no information? That is the highest level of incompetence. And you are the one who appointed them. Okay. So he said he is to blame. So he said, in light of all of this, he said, you know what? Burn it to the ground.
Tumaliza hii kitu tukisonga. Tukisonga. Anguka nayo.
So that's what it looks like. And he said, you know what? This is why. So there's elements of incompetence which he had recognized a year ago. And this is by his own admission that there was a problem here. But this is now combined with the serious push that we've seen from even before the 25th of June, but that we saw that heavy. We cannot allow this kind of thing to continue to happen. So you have dry tinder with petroleum, and then the match was struck, and the thing went up in flames.
Can I ask
he said the only way to do it is to send everybody home and let's start from scratch.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Last year when he noticed that there were cabinet secretaries who were incompetent, would it have mattered if then he had taken action?
At that point?
Dissolve the thing then?
No.
That's the point when he was giving them now performance contracts and saying, look, now from where you are, this is my assessment, just top level assessment of you. And this is, in case you had no idea what your job entailed, let me put it in writing. This is the performance contract. Number 1, you're supposed to do report to work. Number 2, be on time. Number 3,
do not steal.
You know, like that.
But I see a fault even right there. From what I hear and what I read, there's something called induction. People, when you get a position such as the ones we're speaking of, people
are induced.
You're induced. Yes, the induction is supposed to have an outcome. So you are taught, you know, you walk here, you do this, this private lift, this one here, this is the private lift. It only goes to your floor. All these things. Now, plus, we've given you a grant for this, we've given you this. Now, in that process, I'm sure you are told, this is your PS or your PSs, these are your directors, blah, blah, blah. So it cannot really then be said that you don't know, because you may not know, but the people who you find there were not elected. They were there before you even got there. So you will know what you're supposed to do. So if at the point, and you're talking about a year down the line, you don't seem to know what you're doing, something is really very wrong with you.
Very wrong with you. Very, very wrong.
The performance contract, at the time of appointment, the performance contract was implied if it wasn't given to you in writing.
I think, actually, now if you raised it, I think it goes back into a conversation we've had even before when the vetting was taking place.
Yes.
Particularly for principal secretaries.
Yes.
So you have a cabinet secretary who has never worked in government.
Yes.
And you have a PS who has never worked in government.
Yes.
And then you've got directors who've been promoted on political patronage.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
What do you expect?
Right.
And then you hit the ground running. You have not taken sufficient time to go to the Kenya School of Government to understand government.
How government operates at the very least.
Because that's why we say principal secretaries, they're the ones now who are running ministries. Well,
it's them.
They've been the ones
who are the
all
account
the time.
holders.
They're always the account holders. But how much do they understand government?
Yes.
How much does Nixon Korir understand government? He's never worked in government.
He's a politician. He's a politician.
And he's the cabinet secretary for lands.
Yes.
How much, you could say like now Hinga maybe has, because of working in government for those years since the last administration, has understood a bit of government. But by the time of appointment, how much did he understand government?
It is a valid question.
How much does Dr. Raymond Omolo understand government? He is the man in charge of actually the entire structure of the national government administration. How much does he understand the government?
Precisely.
We should be saying that such people should have come from the Kenya School of Government. People like maybe PS, what's his name? Harsame. He used to be in agriculture. We had him here. Kelo Harsame. Right?
Harsame.
Yeah, he has risen up the ranks of public administration.
Even when you hear him
he's
speak.
He's a DO, then he's gone into a secretary in a ministry, then he is so he understands this is how government works. This is
when you talk to the man, or when he talks to you, you know he understands what he's talking about.
He can't just launch a program. He knows to launch a program, you need to first do this on the ground.
Yes.
Now, this brings us to those conversations. Even as the president is about to take action on the principal secretaries, should he just pick any Tom, Dick and Harry from the streets there, petroleum dealer, to come and be a PS?
This is where now we go back to Parliament and ask ourselves, this vetting process that they undertook, where was the due diligence? Because they are the ones, they were the filter that allowed these guys to go through. Is it not so? Yes.
We know what happened.
The filter was applied here.
Yes.
It was just large brushstrokes in terms of this is who's been suggested. Pass the thing.
Okay. So now the fingers are pointing directly at the president, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, but may they point. However, if you understand the role of government being executive, government being judicial system, government being parliament, then one arm of government didn't do what it was supposed to do. Oversight, in whatever form or manner you want to look at it, this was not done properly. Because if it was, and if they claim that it was, then how did it turn out this way?
Yeah. Nikuzi. Nikufiam. So the president has actually gotten where he's gotten to now. Yesterday's was the third public address that the president made, state address that the president was making since these protests began. That tells you that the pressure has actually been increasing or decreasing? Increasing, right? Has the injection been working?
Inject.
It has been working, because this is it. The nation has a story about the wrong moves that pushed President Ruto into a tight corner, and they're looking at all these things that were happening, all right? Number one, the people come out in the streets last year to talk about the finance bill, and they're opposing the housing levy, okay? It is pushed through. People go to court, and the government is told you cannot start a housing levy even without following due process of the law, or run backwards and do it. This year, come up with another finance bill. You're pushing to raise an extra 349 billion shillings, and through various measures, everybody is up in arms. And instead of listening to what exactly people are saying, you say, okay, let's remove the one on bread, let's move the one on Problem number two, when people were on the street and they were demonstrating, the reaction and the response that was coming from the president was, these are our children, we understand. It's because they just don't understand that we are actually doing jobs for them. You know, if we add CDF, they will get bursaries, they'll go to school, you know?
And if they've passed exams, you know something? We've got jobs for them abroad.
We are taking them to abroad. They will get there and they'll work. That was the response. Missing again the point. Missing the turns all the time. Getting to a level where it appears, because the president had all the time in the last 2 years to disband his cabinet, or to do the reshuffles that were needed, or to even dismiss ministers who have been tainted in corruption during their term in office. He had all the time.
Yes.
Now it appears that the president has been pushed by the people to act.
So he had an opportunity, which in my opinion he missed, by his own admission, when at that point he said, oh, come on guys, I'm asking you questions about your thing, where you are, and you don't have the answers. That should have been a light moment for him, like, oh my goodness, here we are at this point. What is going to happen between here and then, in the next even 6 months, that's going to be a radical change for us to see what actually should be happening from these offices? That should have been a poke in the knee for him at that point to say, you know what, I need to do something here. It didn't. Was he hoping that by some good fortune things would turn around?
You shouldn't have made that statement in the first place, because you made such a statement, such an admission. Those individuals should have gone right there and then.
Apo. Right
but
there.
then it's festering, you can see it. Gangrene is setting in, and you're still saying, I'm going to give you a scheme of work for this gangrene. So how about reduce it? It's there. If you do not do what is necessary and scrape whatever is rotting,
you'll have to chop off.
You're going to have to chop it off. And here's where we are. It has been chopped off.
Yeah.
What were they doing, the cabinet secretaries, as they got their cut? By the time they were sent packing yesterday, some of these cabinet secretaries had scheduled to undertake several projects. Kipchumba Murkomen was inspecting a bus rapid transport terminus on Thika Road yesterday as he was being fired. On Wednesday, he was in the Senate where he said, accountability is the cornerstone of democratic leadership as enshrined in our constitution. As a ministry, we are committed to ensuring that we deliver an efficient transport infrastructure as it's a crucial pillar of our economy. On Tuesday, he had boarded a passenger train and toured several railway stations under construction from the Nairobi railway headquarters to Lukenya. Haya, Professor Kithure Kindiki, his last public announcement was delivered 2 days before his sacking. He had just announced the government's plans to investigate and prosecute all persons found to be involved in the abductions of young Kenyans witnessed in the country over the last 3 weeks. The last thing that Kithure Kindiki had done is issue another promise, like he has done for the last 2 years. I promise that bandits, we shall arrest them and take them to court. I promise that the children who were killed and some of them bludgeoned to death and buried in shallow graves in Shakahola shall find justice. I promise that people who are... I promise that IDs shall be coming out on time.
I promise that
the passports shall be sorted. I promise, he was promising that there will be investigations into abductions.
Surely, folks, don't you recognize consistency when you see
There's
it?
a promise.
I promise I do.
Precisely. So, this is a man who you could say has been removed for consistency. Yes.
Where was Dr. Alpha Mutua? He was in Kilifi.
Of course.
He had just completed a beach cleaning exercise. He had just completed a beach cleaning exercise, and the photos of this activity were yet to be posted on the ministry's social media accounts. Aiden Duale for Defense, Ababu Namwamba for Sports, Susan Nakhumicha of Health, Florence Bore of Labour, Benina Malonza of ESC and the ASALs, and Zachary Jero of Water, as well as Attorney General Justin Muturi, had just 3 hours before their dismissal attended the second National Development Implementation Committee meeting. Hati wako wapi? Your Excellency, wako meeting yale ya planning ya National Development Implementation. Waambie wa implement.
Or implement ile plan.
Good afternoon, Kenyans. I have dismissed Haya. The meeting was chaired by the only man who evaded the axe, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi. In addition to his attendance to the NDIC meeting, Namwamba, who had just seen Team Kenya head for the Paris Olympics last week, held another meeting at his office with Harambee Stars coach Engin Firat at the Talanta Plaza offices. Nakhumicha, who has had a rough time over the past few weeks amid piling pressure from medical interns, demanded to be posted, had on Wednesday said the state would hire the medics and pay them in accordance with the state's austerity measures. Just 3 days ago, Land CS Alice Wahome had launched some project in Muranga. Professor Jagona Dongo had left his juniors racking their brains on how to reduce the budget to fit the austerity measures announced by the president last week. On Wednesday night, Public Service CS Moses Kuria had, in a rare show of humility on national TV, admitted that he too was part of the mess the country is facing. Ati, who was the outgone, the fired minister for water? His name, City.
Sorry.
No, don't look anywhere, City.
I have to look.
No.
Jeru. Sorry.
The minister for water.
Yeah,
was this gentleman who used to be in Lands, then they switched with Alice?
What is his name?
He's called Jeru.
The first name?
Macharia, I think comes from Nakuru.
There's no Macharia and Jeru.
Is that Macharia?
No.
Okay, then it's called William.
If you like.
Zachary Jeru.
Zakaria.
Zachary Jeru had met Nakuru leaders 2 days ago to discuss key projects, including the Itare Dam. An hour before President Ruto sent the CSs home, immediate former Energy and Petroleum CS David Churchill was in Nakuru, where he met with Governor Susan Keheka. The county boss came with a deputation some leaders to discuss the country's last mile connectivity development program. Okay. Yeah. That is what they were doing.
24 hours before that, former CS in the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure. He was here, Mama.
Yeah. And he has said his conscience is clear. He believes he has done the best he could.
Well, when you find yourself jobless, I think there's a lot of space for greater clarity.
Philosophy kicks in as well.
You can be extremely philosophical. But you know something? This is the sort of thing that one talked about, hoped for. I didn't expect, neither did I foresee this magnitude. Me, I saw a reshuffle. I saw a few people being tossed out. I even thought of a few names. But
that's what you're foreseeing. That.
I foresaw that. And the question was who will remain, who will be kicked out, where will the balance be? But this wholesale.
You hadn't seen it?
This bulk? No, this one I had not seen. I honestly had not seen it.
I think I had seen it as the only way out.
Yes.
Because you touch some and you leave some, and the people are saying, get them all home. Afadhali, you get them all home, and then they're vetted afresh.
You start again.
Afadhali, you get them all home, and if there are one or two that you'd like to bring back, bring them back, and maybe people will be like, okay, yeah, this one we had. No, we really, okay. No, we don't have an issue with this one. But that you keep some. That bus left the station last month. He could have done that. He could have reshuffled his cabinet last month.
Well,
up to last month.
If I take that view, then I have to ask the question, are we then suggesting that there is the remotest possibility that we have a president who was smart enough to know that if this thing boiled to a certain point,
I'll finally get my...
He'll suddenly have the opportunity to do exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Are we saying that this is also a possibility?
It's a huge possibility that even in the very beginning, whether he was bound to any kind of political pressure, he knew that, okay, I too know that these guys are not going to be able to do this thing. And it'll get to a point where, well, I have no option but to get rid of them. I can't say that he ruled that out completely.
If that is the case, then one would have to argue also that then he then knew that this tightrope around his neck that has been tied in by the IMF and allegedly by World Bank and allegedly by the US, the only way they would be gotten to a point where they would release the pressure is if this thing boiled to the point of overflowing as it did and say, look, folks, you see what's happening here? I cannot continue doing this because you can see what's happening and we're going to have a problem.
Yep.
Yes.
At 8 o'clock, we'll have a wider conversation on then what happens next.
Yeah.
Right? So, cabinet home. And
we'll see what happens.
What next?
So there's a story of the life and times of JCC's Bishop Alan Cuna. That is in the Nairobi, and it's been across a lot of media this week. And unfortunately, he did pass away a couple of days ago. The passing of a charismatic Jesus Celebration Church Bishop Alan Cuna, just under a year after being declared cancer-free, has sent shockwaves among his faithful. The news of the preacher passing on was conveyed in a short message to the congregants. In a statement, the family says, and I quote, "It is with heartfelt condolences that today we announce our beloved Bishop Alan Cuna has gone to be with the Lord. Bishop Alan Cuna, the general overseer and founder of Jubilee Christian Church, was an extraordinary man who touched the lives of many and had a great passion for ministry, not just locally but globally. It's a story of rags to riches. The man of the cloth had incurred a staggering cost of 460 million shillings during his cancer treatment in the US. Despite the astronomical amount, Bishop Cuna said in earlier interviews that the entire cost was miraculously covered, requiring no contribution from his personal finances. Cuna was loved and admired by many and will be missed by his wife, Kathy. The couple's journey has been about love and faith.
Wow. Yeah, condolences to Mr. Cuna.
Yep.
Siti,
yes,
you tell us about the late David Maanja.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That I shall do with great pleasure. Okay? Let me read just a few of the attributes that we can lay at the feet of the late justice. He was a gentle giant. He was a true friend and a brilliant legal mind. These were just a few words colleagues used to mourn High Court Judge David Maanja, who died at the Nairobi hospital after a minor surgery. Below are tributes from Judge's former Chief Justice William Mutunga, a great anchor to and a greater pillar for the judiciary transformation and the development of transformative jurisprudence in our country has fallen. This is monumental. These are monumental loss to the judiciary and the nation. Appeal Judge Lady Achode, he was such a happy soul and so generous. Anytime anyone was bereaved or sick, he was among the first to donate and visit. He had a brilliant mind. You just love to read his judgment and ruling. He was spot on, and one easily understood his decisions. President of the Court of Appeal Judge Daniel Musinga, Justice David Maanja was a brilliant, hard-working High Court judge and a commissioner at the Judicial Service Commission. He discharged his judicial duties very meticulously, always focused and quite articulate in his arguments. He was also very amiable. We shall miss him dearly. Judge Judith Omange, Commissioner Justice Maanja was not only a trailblazing, accomplished jurist, but a friend who could be counted on at all times. In good times and bad times, Judge Maanja, or Maj, as we fondly called him, was there. He was a colleague who would show up at that funeral, wedding, or function. No one else showed up. We have lost a good judge, a fierce defender of the rule of law, a great mentor and a friend whose love knew no bounds. Judge Maanja, it was an honor. Fare thee well.
Wow. So he will be cremated tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the Kariakor Cemetery. The Kariakor Crematorium?
Yes.
Okay. This is a trend that's actually picking up, huh?
Yes, it is picking up and it's becoming normal.
It's becoming normal.
It's becoming normal.
Cremation.
You know, at the end of the day, you really are dead.
You're gone.
Yes.
It's the others who have issues.
Yeah,
okay. It's time for the news. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. It's emerging that arrogance and corruption are among reasons why President William Ruto fired his cabinet secretaries. Some analysts say the cabinet secretaries failed to carry out their duties properly 2 years after they were appointed. The president is also said to have blamed himself for the recent chaos in the country, saying that he failed by trusting a cabinet that eventually failed him. Before the cabinet was sent home, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi, who wasn't fired, had said that there was inaction in the government.
For the first time, our young people, or the so-called millennials and Gen Zs, have exercised their constitutional right to canvass our parliament to reject the Finance Bill 2024, demanding better governance and service delivery to the people. They have called us out with a particularly strong message to the government that they are not feeling us. In some instances, we gave them the ammunition to fight back by showing off our opulence, maybe corruption, and wasteful use of public resources.
Political affairs analyst Javas Bigambo says the president now has an opportunity to appoint qualified people to help him achieve his goals.
Mheshimiwa Rais amechukua hatua ya kutupilia mbali ama kufutilia mbali baraza la mawaziri, haswa kutokana na shinikizo la wananchi kwamba hawajaridhishwa na utendakazi wa baraza la mawaziri, ambayo pamoja imeambatana na kauli ya rais ya hapo awali kwamba baadhi ya mawaziri na makatibu hawana taarifa na uelewi mkubwa sana wa wizara zao. Na jambo lingine ni kuwa wananchi pia wamekuwa na tashwishi kubwa sana na ule jinsi ambavyo baadhi ya mawaziri katika serikali ambao wametolewa sasa hivi wamekuwa wakiishi maisha ya kifahari tofauti na umaskini uliokithiri nchini.
A number of cabinet secretaries who were dismissed by President William Ruto on Thursday have been taking to social media to respond to the decision. Former Defence CS Aden Duale thanked the president for entrusting him with such a critical ministry. His former tourism counterpart Alfred Mutua also thanked the president, noting that the president is genuinely committed to transform the country. Former Environment CS Soipan Tuya also thanked President Ruto, saying the opportunity to serve was a privilege and an honor. Aisha Jumwa and Florence Bore, who served in the Gender, Culture, Arts and Heritage and Labour and Social Protection Ministries respectively, also thanked the president for appointing them to the roles. Busia Senator Okoh Mtata has now called on President William Ruto to dissolve the Kenya Kwanza government and resign. Speaking in the Senate, Mtata said the president should go because Kenyans have lost faith in his leadership.
The entire Kenya Kwanza administration, led by Mr. Ruto, must vacate power. The call that Ruto must go is not an idle call. It's a call whose time has come. It's a call whose time has come. You cannot be told lies every day.
Mtata went on to emphasize that the president should resign over his handling of the recent protests that left at least 41 people dead.
Our children have died, something that has never happened in this country. The president has called them criminals, and the president cannot continue sitting in power when the children have died. And he said you do anything at whatever cost, when the Constitution says you can't do anything at whatever cost. Anything less than that will not avenge the blood that has been spilled on our streets. There's not even a call that these things should be investigated. Instead, they're trying to say that we go and have dialogue to assage, to see, I don't know how to distort what is happening.
Rebranding, stealing or selling free sanitary towels provided by the state could land you in jail if a new bill is enacted. The Sanitary Towers Bill 2024 provides free sanitary towels to all school girls and women inmates. First offenders will face a 5 million shillings fine or 3 years in jail, while repeat offenders will be fined 10 million shillings or a 5-year jail term. The proposed law, which comes as a relief to many learners from poor backgrounds, is sponsored by nominated Senator Gloria Oruoba. It's been introduced in the Senate for the first reading. A new survey shows that digital fraud schemes are on the rise in the country, with 80% of Kenyans having been targeted in the first 3 months of the year. The TransUnion's Consumer Pulse survey shows that 72% of respondents who reported being targeted by the fraud scheme successfully avoided falling victim, but 8% didn't. That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
It is a few minutes after 7 o'clock. Let's take a quick look at what's happening on the streets this morning. We're likely to see, like we said, outbound traffic as it is the weekend and folks going where they're going to do what they need to do. There's traffic incoming on Gong Road, and that'll take us through past Junction out towards Community, but that's nothing too much to worry about at this moment. It's building on the Thika Superhighway. We're seeing traffic coming in from Githurai out towards Kasarani and then into the CBD. The Pangani Tunnel is going to slow you down just a little bit. And there's also traffic coming in on Kiambu Road. Just watch out for that. So look at this junction between Muranga Road and then also coming in from Wangari Maathai on the other side. Some traffic there yet to build on the roundabout at Globe Cinema. Jogo Road busy going towards Landis, but this is all taken in stride. We're keeping an eye on things coming in from Donholm and then crossing over towards Outer Ring. There's some traffic there. We'll take a quick look at what's coming on the Eastern Bypass, and it's not too bad, at least not for now, but it is piling up, and that's inbound towards Cabanas. All right, let's keep an eye on things and see what happens as we get into traffic hour. We will talk on SpiceFM KE on X, #The Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
On this 12th day of July 2024, welcome to a new Kenya. Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi to the world on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and Facebook, on TikTok, on X, and also on digital radio platforms, Radio Garden, and the rest. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. As we get into this hour, we want to tell you, so we are going to have a Health Friday conversation next, because it's important that we keep remembering that, for example, cancer is a big burden in this country. The cost of treatment, just not financially, but everything, emotionally, economically to people, and just to families and what happens to families is a big issue, and that's what we'll be discussing next. In the next hour, we shall have a conversation and open the phone lines to engage everybody. So yes, we've seen the president take action. He has dismissed his cabinet. So what do we expect to see next? What should be next? And then at 9 o'clock, we'll continue that conversation with a regional perspective, and this will be on why Kenya should not invite anarchy and the importance of political stability. Albino Mathom Ayuel Abug is the special presidential envoy for the president of the Republic of South Sudan. We know what's happening in South Sudan. We've seen what's happened in South Sudan. Decades of turmoil with the Greater Sudan. And since their own independence, South Sudan has still been having conflict. What are the lessons and the journeys to avoid? Ndu?
Yes.
Please remind everybody who would like to watch the final of Euro 2024 what they need to do.
Well, the final is going to take place between Spain and England. All right?
Yeah.
That happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can actually watch it live. You can watch it on your phone. If the pressure is too much and you want to watch it under the stairs, you can actually do that, because all you need to do is download the app on your Google Play Store or Apple App Store.
Mm-hmm.
It's Showmax. That's the app. You can get onto the website www.showmax.com. Mm-hmm. You download, you register, you pay, you watch. Just like that. And you've watched all the matches that took place between now and then and the final. You don't have to worry that, are there rights issues? You can actually watch this match from beginning to end and get into fan content, pre-match analysis, post-match analysis, all kinds of other things that happen all around the final. They will be available for you. It's on Africa's upgraded streaming platform, Shika Showmax.
Kabisa. If you'd like and you're thinking of getting the best health insurance, think no further than Jubilee Health, because they have the best packages, the best products just for you, for your family, for individuals. They have products for seniors. And if you're a senior and you're thinking, all right, I'd like, of course, to have a proper functioning health insurance that gives me access to hundreds of facilities, Jubilee Health it is. And their website is www.jubileeinsurance.com, and the number to call them, City,
is 0709
yes
949
yes
000.
Bas kabisa 0709
949 000.
Very good.
The Euro final is on Sunday. Sorry, don't be angry.
Saturday.
Nimesema Saturday. I thought today was Saturday.
Oh, the Saturday after Saturday.
It's Sunday.
Okay.
The first Saturday or the second Saturday?
The second Saturday of the weekend. Okay. Our Health Friday conversation today is going to be on clinical research and cancer care in Kenya, and we're joined by Professor Mansour Saleh. Professor is the founding director at the Aga Khan University Cancer and Clinical Research Unit. Prof, good morning.
Asante. Thanks for having me here.
Karibu sana. That's the hot seat of the situation room. How does it feel?
I see that. It feels very warm so far.
Karibu.
Very early to be warm, but I'm ready.
Very good. You'll tell us about your center and what the Aga Khan University is doing in terms of just research into the area of cancer. But to welcome you to the conversation is Bonasiti Muga, and he will give you the day's proverb.
Yes, proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the island republic of Sao Tome and Principe. As in English, we were told the other day that the pronunciation, since it is Portuguese, is Sao Tome e Principe. But Sao Tome and Principe. A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell. That is the proverb.
A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
Yes.
Prof, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, be careful who you take your company with. I think that should be my interpretation.
Watch out. who you hobnob with.
Yes. Don't be taken in by the appearance.
Yes. Smiling. Giving you all the sweet things.
Understandable, talking well.
Yes. Buying you drinks.
Giving you chocolate.
Giving you chocolate.
When?
you may just end up in hell. Okay. Prof, tell us about your unit, the Cancer and Clinical Research Unit at the Aga Khan University.
So, I was born in Zanzibar many decades ago. I am the child of a revolution. I was there during the revolution. I spent a few days in prison, went to school in Tanzania, came to Kenya to do my high school, and then went to Germany to study medicine, and then went to the States. What I realized that the paradigm change is we used to treat cancer with the machine gun. You shoot whatever divides, but in the process, you lose hair, you drop the blood count, you become immunocompromised. So the future of oncology care is targeting those aspects of your gene that are responsible for cancer. So it's not organ specific, but target specific.
Okay.
So after all that, I thought only 1% of clinical trials are conducted in Africa. We had no clinical research unit in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. I thought I could come back home and do this just as well I could do it in America. And the clinical research unit is a reflection of the desire so that we in Africa can conduct clinical research on our people, for our people, so that the drugs we get from the West are tested on us before we get them commercially.
Please say that again. There's something that you've said, that we did not have a clinical research unit for cancer in the region and in Africa.
Correct. If you look at, we have data from 2019, there were about 700 trials conducted in Africa. Only 26 were cancer clinical trials. Of those 26, 20 were conducted either in South Africa or Egypt, where we do not have African patients, and only 6 were conducted in sub-Saharan Africa. We wanted to change that paradigm. And in fact, we have a study whereby we tested the genes of Kenyan women who have this aggressive form of breast cancer called triple negative breast cancer. I took the tissue from Kenyan women, took it to Alabama where I trained, compared it to African American women in Alabama and white women in Alabama. And we see hotspots in Kenyan women with triple negative breast cancer not present in African American or Caucasians. Our genes are different. The drugs for us may be well different than the ones that come from the West. The only way to find out is to be part of clinical trials here in sub-Saharan Africa. And that is what the clinical research unit does.
Do I hear you to be saying, Professor, this is mind-boggling or mind-alerting, that because there were not adequate clinical trials conducted with regards to the treatment of cancer in, say, in sub-Saharan Africa, whatever drugs that we have that have been availed for that treatment may not necessarily be the most suitable given our genetic makeup. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, and we have to be careful in science, we haven't tested them. They seem to work very well, but it's quite possible that we may have more side effects, that the benefit may be different. And I will give an example. I was part of a clinical trial in North America. It's like a growth factor to grow your platelets. Platelets are those cells that help you stop bleeding. So when you cut yourself, the first time you ooze a little bit and then it stops. The platelets are the one that stick and stop you from bleeding. And then there'll be a clot. So clearly platelets are important. So there are some diseases where the platelets are low, they're being destroyed in your body. You have bruising, bleeding, you brush your teeth, you start bleeding. So we have a growth factor that is given to increase your platelet count. The FDA approved 50 milligrams per day as the right dose for that condition. There were about 14 patients in Hong Kong because one of the investigators was from Hong Kong. So the eligibility criteria was a platelet count less than 20,000, you're eligible for the study, you enroll the study. The objective was to get the platelet count to 100,000, which is in the normal range. And 50 milligrams was the right dose for Caucasians. Those 14 patients, there were about 20% of those patients who had 50 milligrams, their platelet count went to 1 million.
What?
They were supposed to get to 100,000, it went to 1 million, and those million platelets caused clotting. So here we are treating bleeding, and then all of a sudden we form these white platelet clots. And the FDA has a black box warning on that particular drug that says if you are of East Asian ancestry, take half a dose. And my question is, should the Kenyan take a quarter dose, a full dose, or a double dose? The genetics of the makeup of the individual determines how you metabolize the drug. And when you go to talk about the gene, the genetic makeup of the Kenyan patient may well determine what drugs are right for them, because we are going from a machine gun approach to a precision medicine approach that targets the gene responsible for your disease as opposed to the manifestation of the disease.
Okay. What stage is clinical trial at currently?
So there are three forms of clinical trials. You know, you have a drug, and it could be for anything, diabetes, hypertension, etc., that is tested in the test tube, tested in animal model, then it gives to a patient. When it comes to a patient for the first time, it's called first in human. That's what I did when I was training in Alabama. So that's phase 1. You determine there what is the least toxic dose that the patient might tolerate. So that's phase 1. No efficacy being tested, just the right dose. Phase 2 is the right dose being looked for efficacy. And phase 3 is you compare what is currently available today with the new drug and to say which is better. We at the Aga Khan University CRU conduct phase 1, 2s, and 3s. When I came to Kenya, I was absolutely sure we would set up a unit as good as the unit in Alabama. We can do at least phase 3 trials where we compare new drugs to old drugs, because those are less, I would say, high risk, because the side effects of the drugs are known. You know the known drug approved by the FDA. The new drug has gone through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We just about 6 months or 8 months ago started our first phase 1 study in the history of Africa, where we block a specific gene called KRAS G12C. 10% of Caucasian patients who have cancer have this mutated gene. And if you have that mutated gene, you have a 90% risk of getting cancer. We have a pill today, approved in the West, to block that gene in lung cancer. And the study we had was you take any cancer available in Africa that you see in a patient who's failed conventional therapy. If they have that gene, we have a pill to block the gene. Well, we thought 10% in the West, we would get at least 10 patients out of 100. We've tested 100 patients. We only got one patient who was positive for the gene, and that patient was not Kenyan or Ugandan. We are just treating our second patient, a young girl from Ethiopia who has the gene, has failed 5 prior therapies, coming to us to get this pill that blocks the gene. And we have a PET scan that shows within 14 days, her tumors are shrinking down because we can block the driver mutation. But it's not as common in Africa as we thought it would be. So my question is, test our genetic makeup before you bring drugs to us. And one of the reasons we in the clinical research unit are looking at that is we want to establish a genetic sequencing platform where we can test the gene of the African patient population to say what are the driver mutations for our diseases, not just cancer, but diabetes, high blood pressure, because they all have a genetic source before they become manifested as an ailment.
So essentially, are we saying that this process that you're asking for, test the genetics in Africa before you bring or you sell us the drugs that we're going to use to treat particular diseases, does this process then take place in the jurisdictions where Big Pharma is providing these drugs? Do they take place there in that manner?
Well, often pharma is a for-profit entity. You have shareholders, so they want to study a drug quickly, get it approved quickly, and be able to put it commercialized. The FDA in the US requires that at least 10% of the population studied should be minority.
Mm-hmm.
Even in America, only 4% of clinical trials enroll minorities. And there are no Africans on those clinical trials, which is what we are saying is, come to Africa. We have facilities as good as in North America, and we can provide you our patients to test the drugs on so that when you sell them commercially, we can say with good faith, they also apply to our patients here in Africa.
So they are actually then produced, manufactured broad scale for people with particular genetics on the other side of the pond. Is that not what we're saying?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. But are we also then not suggesting that given that they're profit-making entities, they will conduct studies among populations where they know that their product can be afforded?
True. Well, affordability is a different thing. It's more of a second stage. They will test their drug. I mean, we would do the same thing. You'd go fishing where there are fish. And you use one kind of bait where these fish will eat that bait. I mean, that is logic. So we have no trouble with that. And there are a number of pharma who says, yes, we have to be making profit, to invest the profit to get new drug development. What we are saying is, it may well be that our patients are somehow different. So enroll our patients on your clinical trials, and that be participatory. And I think there are a number of pharmaceutical companies that are very proactive to do that, have been coming to Africa, which is why the clinical research unit, in 2020, there were no clinical trials besides infectious diseases being conducted in sub-Saharan Africa. Zero. Today, in the clinical research unit, we have other sites within Kenya that do research. I can tell about the CRU. 2020, the first study we did was tocilizumab, which was what we used for COVID. Today we have 16 clinical trials, enrolled 300 patients, 300 Kenyan patients, never done before. And we find findings. We have a study in multiple sclerosis. MS is a disorder, a neurologic disorder that causes neurologic dysfunction. It's a disorder of young women. We had 14 patients on this clinical trial out of 154 around the world. Our 14 patients had more disease, earlier disease, but responded better to that treatment than those other 154. Looks like this drug works well for us. So we would want that drug to come to us, but it's quite expensive. So the next step is to say, when the drug is found to be beneficial, what can we do as a population? What can the government do to allow us to have access to these drugs that have been found to be beneficial?
More affordably. The question, though, Prof, is everything that you're saying, I mean, many medical researchers such as yourself must have known this for a long time, that the genetic makeup of people in this part of the world is not the same as genetic makeup for people in other parts of the world. Correct. So why have we never had clinical trials on the field of cancer in Africa at all? And yet we know that, even those who live in Africa also get cancer.
So we've known that different populations, different ethnicities have a different genetic makeup because they came from a different gene pool. But what to do about that was not known because we knew that there are certain mutations, for example, the BRCA mutation. It's been made very famous by Angelina Jolie, right? She had the BRCA mutation. Her mother, I believe, had breast cancer, her grandmother breast cancer. It's quite common in patients of Jewish ancestry. So it has been studied very clearly. The question is, even though we knew BRCA is cancer-causing, we could not stop that. Today we have drugs that are able to ameliorate the effect of BRCA. So it takes a while First is discovery of the pathogen, discovery of the source, and the ability to block that source which causes the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what about BRCA in Kenya, in East Africa, in Africa for that matter? The test to do BRCA testing costs about $350. Who can afford that?
Right.
We at AKU would like to set up a genetic sequencing platform where it's affordable for patients to be able to at least get tested. 20% of my patients at AKU, and I'm sure the same thing would be at other places here in East Africa, have a hereditary predisposition. You ask the patient to say, my aunt had breast cancer. Oh yes, my grandfather had breast cancer. Well, have we tested you for the gene? No, it's too expensive. And in the past, when we test you, we couldn't do anything about it. But today we can. So I think your countryman, my president, Barack Obama, says, yes, we can. And the clinical research unit is there to say, yes, we can in East Africa to do the same work that has been done in the West. We just need pharma to support us. We need the government to support us. We need government to be able to fund certain early detection mechanisms for breast cancer, cervical cancer, colon cancer, and so that we can survive longer. I was just talking to my colleague, Dan, before I was waiting for you. 20% of prostate cancer patients in Kenya that we see are below the age of 40. Not seen in North America. But we do not have PSA testing that we can do early detect. What about colonoscopy? 20% of colon cancer patients in Kenya that we see at AKU are below the age of 40. Not very common in North America. Is the federal government allowing us to have colonoscopies at an affordable rate so we can pick them up early? So this way, we increase the cure rate. Those patients who are cured will pay taxes, will be really productive members of society, as opposed to when they come with stage 4 disease, survive about a year or so, cause significant amount of money to the healthcare system, significant amount of pain and suffering to the family as a whole. I think we can change that paradigm with early detection and then providing resources for treatment.
Before I go to the break, I want to ask this question. What's been public perception is that there's an increase in the number of cancer cases in Kenya. So, is that the case, or is it that there's an increase in cancer diagnosis in Kenya?
That's a good question. We clearly have more sophisticated technologies, CT scans, PET scans, MRI, where we detect cancer early, mammography for that matter. We are growing older, so the older you are, the higher the risk that you'll have a mutation that will result in cancer. But more importantly, we've also taken up Western habits, high fat, low fiber, low exercise. And clearly we have, if you look at the traffic, there's quite a bit of smog out there and smoke. So we are adopting all the Western habits of congestion, obesity, low exercise. We have stopped becoming Africans like we were, and we're becoming North Americans where we only choose the bad attributes, not the good ones that we had. We give them up. When Japanese moved from Japan to the US, their breast cancer rate, which was low, became very high because obesity increases estrogen. Estrogen is a growth factor for breast cancer. I think the same thing would happen to us. As we live longer, we'll be inviting new pathologies that I think we need to be careful about.
Okay. But then the pushback to that would be that very many of the people who also get diagnosis for breast cancer are very active people. And they're in rural areas of this country. And one would argue that they are eating, those natural foods, the mbogas, organic foods, right?
It goes back to the question is the genetic makeup that we have predisposing us to those kinds of pathologies? And more importantly, though, you could be very young and organic. I just came back from a city, and I won't name where it is. They were selling fruits on the streets, on the roads, as you know very well. And I heard that the use of fertilizer in those regions is significant. Well, we talk about being organic. Well, those potatoes I was about to buy were highly fertilized. So I'm sure what we eat, even in the shambas up there, may not be quite what we think we're eating.
That's true. Okay, let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. It's 29 minutes to 8. We're having our Health Friday conversation today on clinical trials for cancer and how far we are. Clinical research, cancer care in this country. Professor Mansour Saleh is the founding director at the Aga Khan University Cancer and Clinical Research Unit. CT, as we take this break, let everybody know that if they switch they can win up to 1 million shillings?
Well, life often comes with many surprises. Now, the surprises that people like are surprises that involve money and if they're receiving it. Well, Stanbic is saying, look, you probably have a bank account. We are offering you yet another and with benefits that your current bank account may not have. That's why the mention of the switch. Every single month for the next 2 months, Stanbic Bank will have a draw. Now, this draw is based on you having an account with them in which you deposit 50,000 shillings or opening a new account where you deposit 50,000 shillings. The 50,000 automatically enables you to enter that draw. Now, the monthly draw, you stand a chance of winning 300,000 shillings. First runner-up stands a chance of winning 200,000 shillings. Second runner-up stands a chance of winning 100,000 shillings. And then there's a grand draw. Now, the grand draw is now the kicker, because here you stand a chance of winning 1 million shillings. First runner-up stands a chance of winning 500,000 shillings. And second runner-up stands a chance of winning 300,000 shillings. But it doesn't end there. If you have a mortgage, they're saying, look, we do not know how much it is your mortgage costs you, but we will offer you a mortgage at 9.5%. And it's a constant 9.5%. Now, if you have queries and you want to find out more, but why don't you get in touch with Stanbic?
Indeed.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Baba boy, gas imeisha, shopping imeisha, na ujue tokens bado zinalia.
Msupa, nipe mbao na 20 minutes.
Mbao, like 20 bob. 20 minutes, kwani kuna nini? Na ujue mimi nataka kupika haki.
Jaber, kwani ujui dakika mamilini every 20 minutes, halafu wanapea na 10 million every 20 minutes, na hadi kuna 3 millionaires every hour.
Daka mamili virahisi. Uko na nafasi 3 ya kuwa millionaire kila hour. Usipitwe. Cheza daka. Ushike mita yako sasa. Chagua nambari zako 4 za bahati and win up to 10 million every 20 minutes. Nenda kwenye paybill 440440. Account Spice amount. Cheza na shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000 na ushinde mamilioni. Daka mita. Kuwa bingwa.
The weather with Spice FM.
10 degrees in
Spice up your life.
All right, it's a busy Friday morning, but traffic is not giving as much as it normally would. We're seeing outbound traffic more than anything else in a westerly direction. Coming off Waiyaki, we're going out west. Some traffic starting to build up on the A104, so probably look through that through this morning. We're just getting to traffic hour now, and it's coming in heavy on the Thika Superhighway, coming through towards Survey and then into the CBD. And now is when you see movement right around the Globe Cinema roundabout. Kangunda Road, in and outbound traffic continues, and it's a bit crazy coming off the Eastern Bypass going towards North Airport Road and Cabanas. That's the worst of it for now. Let's see what happens as traffic hour progresses. We'll talk on Spice FM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Aga Khan University has established a cancer and clinical research unit, and the founding director is Professor Mansoor Saleh. He's our guest this morning in our Health Friday conversation. We're talking about, clinical trials and clinical research for cancer in this country. And this is the first center to be established, not just in Kenya, but in the region. Not just in the region, but in the continent.
There are others who have followed suit, and I think we cannot be the only ones. We should not be the only ones, but I think we've set the mark to say we can do research at the same level as Western countries, and we were FDA audited, the PPB audited us, so we really have to do compliance. As I've told my colleagues, clinical research is not a hobby you do on the side of clinical care, where you see the patient for 6 hours a day, and then on your way home, you say, well, maybe I'll do a clinical trial. We are focused on doing this as part of our genetic makeup to say we want to do research at the highest level so that our data counts with all the others.
Okay. Are you collaborating with all the other centers? Or even the other research facilities, KEMRI, for instance, Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, which also has a unit that is working on cancer. Are you collaborating with those?
Correct. A number of those centers, KEMRI, for example, KUTRH, etc., are just beginning to have a cancer research unit. It is fair to say that the world came to us because we had infectious diseases, TB, malaria, HIV. They had to come to us to do those studies. They did not come to us for cancer. So there were no cancer clinical trials. We have my colleague Chiti up in Eldoret having the ICI Cancer Research Unit, my colleague Sidna here in Nairobi having a clinical research unit. We have to have a platform of many more sites so that we can have a platform where pharma can say, we just not choose one, but many partners. The key is the compliance within this team has to be accurate. Patients have to be eligible for a study because that's what counts. And I believe we have a very good network of establishing clinical research units here within East Africa.
What kind of support are we looking at here? Because just from examples that you've given, where the majority of the drugs that come to Africa for cancer care, where those are being developed, often have networks with governments, organizations. We're talking about CDC, for example, and other bodies that have been established to ensure that whatever research then is being done is complemented by government action in terms of funding and things like that. So here we are, and with clinical trials happening on the continent, which would then lead to advisories on what kind of medication then is necessary to be had here. What kind of support then on this end would be required to ensure the affordability that you speak of and the regularity of the availability of these medicines? What kind of support would be necessary?
You ask a very important question, because besides having a clinical research unit that we have at AKU and other colleagues have within East Africa, it is how efficient are we in getting these clinical trials approved by the system? So the way it works is the PI, the principal investigator, gets a clinical trial from a pharmaceutical or develops their own clinical trial. It's reviewed by the human subject board within the institution, the IRB, to be sure that we are really ethical in the way we conduct the studies. It then goes to the PPB, who review it again, goes to NACOSTI to get it approved, the Ministry of Health to say we can send a sample outside the country for testing, and then you get activated. So we did a study during COVID when it was a life-threatening condition. The WHO, EVREF, the Ministry of Health says it's life-threatening. Let's do all these processes together so that the study could be approved very quickly. The time to activation of a clinical trial, from the time I get the study to the first patient on, was 78 days, nearly a world record. Could have been in the Guinness Book of Records. During the same time, we had 7 non-COVID clinical trials that took us 278 days to get approved, which is like 9 months. Well, if it takes that long to get a study approved in Kenya, the West will have shut down the study by that time, enroll all the patients. We got many more trials, in fairness. Ukraine going through a war time, a number of studies that were being done in Ukraine are now coming to Africa to be done. But as you say very rightly, the government, the regulatory system have to be nimble and swift It does not mean we just approve what came from the West, but we have to have people with knowledge who can review this in a more expeditious manner, not in a parallel fashion whereby we have stumbling blocks that lead to stagnation.
What kind of emergency are we looking at? Because I remember when COVID made its entrance into the world 2020, end of 2019 into 2020, nobody was really quite sure what was going on. There was a bit of fumbling. But then very quickly, there was a congregation of scientists, specialists, experts, big pharma, who came and said, you know what? This thing is killing people. It's crazy. We need to come together and sort it out. Right? And then before long, we saw trials that were expedited.
Correct.
We saw expedited trials, did we not? And then we saw that before long, there were vaccinations, there was treatment, there were solutions that were done. That was because there was an emergency of a situation at the time where populations were at high risk and quick risk. Now, here with cancer, of course, we know that the burden is increasing, but truly, what kind of an emergency situation are we looking at that one would hope would beg then for the kind of emergency action that we saw with COVID?
You know, in the West, we have the war on cancer. We do not have that in Africa. In the West, when you have a very prominent artist, show actor, or even a politician get cancer, they say, I had this, I got cured, I detected early, we've got good resources. Here, we hide cancer under the rug. When you have it, you go to India, you go somewhere else, and we've forgotten. When you come back, you came back. If you don't come back, nobody thinks about you. I think we, as a government, as a society, have to ask our leaders to have a war on cancer, because it is the fastest growing condition above and beyond diabetes, hypertension. And I think we have not done that. And while we believe that we are making progress in the healthcare, and I think we're not making as much progress as we should, we are accumulating risk factors. Age, pollution, fertilizers, our habits, those are all aggregated to really causing trouble. For example, cervical cancer could be cured and could be kicked out of the footprint of Africa if we had vaccination. We know exactly what causes cervical cancer. Well, we do not have as much vaccination going on as we would like to. So I think there is much that the community can do and ask the government, just like today, when the Gen Z says we want better rights, we want better healthcare, we want less taxes on key commodities that we need for life. I think we should also have a same movement within the population to ask for better healthcare, better clinical trials, and better services for our own health and life.
What research process would we need to conduct in order to understand what the cancer burden is in the country?
You know, tumor registries. Everywhere we have tumor registries where every patient who gets cancer is registered centrally. Now, the Ministry of Health, the National Cancer Institute of Kenya is starting to do that. Our data is not very accurate, but when we have accurate data, it can really tell us what is the burden of disease and which diseases. For example, if you're up in the Eldoret, Tenwick area, we have, for some reason, either genetic, environmental, diet, we have high esophageal cancer. The highest burden of esophageal cancer is in the area of South Asia. Hot tea, certain kinds of tobacco being chewed, etc. We aren't quite sure why in that particular area, in the Tenwick area, we see that. We somebody needs to go back and check. Is it our diet? Is it our genetics? Or is it some environmental factor? We see this. We have a clinical trial treating esophageal cancer with a very specific targeted molecule that targets a specific protein on esophageal cancer. But the question we're asking is, how come we have such a high burden in that particular region? So tumor registers are important, and we need to go and survey the lifestyle, the habits of patients. I think one thing we need to talk about here is also the stigmatization of cancer. We have a study going on at the moment in breast cancer, looking at stigma in breast cancer. When you do not get chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery, nobody knows, just you know that you have cancer, breast cancer, because it's hidden under your breasts, under your dress. Yet the patient feels the fear that the population will realize I've got something. We believe sometimes, falsely, that breast cancer is infectious, that it can be spread. And then when I give you chemotherapy, you lose your hair, you lose your job, you have nausea, vomiting, go to the hospital, you've got even more stigma. A quarter of our patients with breast cancer that we studied have depression, at least a third have anxiety. That, to me, is a burden that society places on a cancer patient that's already suffering. We need to do something about that. And that's the issue of mental health, where we work with the Brain and Mind Institute at the Aga Khan University to look at the mental aspects of cancer and the stresses that causes. For example, we're studying the first study here in Africa is called the Brain Resilience Kenya study, whereby we're studying 200 patients who are healthy going through stresses of life. We have given them a Fitbit, we do an MRI, we do blood work, we do psychological testing to say, what is the impact of normal stresses of life? And we've added another stressor to say, by the way, we've taken 25 breast cancer patients, 25 prostate cancer patients. As we treat you through your life's journey of cancer, what do those stresses do to you on your MRI, on your blood film, on your psychological testing? To assess how can we build resilience, how can we overcome frailty? And that is the kind of research we do, which is cutting edge. I think we just need to be supported in many ways by the government, by the regulatory authorities, to expedite these kinds of trials.
The funding that one gets for the sort of research that you mentioned, are they grants that are given competitively? And if so, one needs to have knowledge of how to apply for these grants. First of all, recognize that they exist, apply for them, whether it's NIH, whether it is whichever institute, and NIH has very many of them. Do you actually think that institutions of health, like, say, for instance, you mentioned Aga Khan is an institution of health, Kenyatta University, Nairobi University, Moi Referral, do these institutions have the wherewithal to be able to tap from these resources to be able to even begin this process that we are speaking about?
Good question. We're getting better at that. It used to be in the past that somebody from the West would say, I need 100 patients of African ancestry on my study with breast cancer. Can you give me the patient? I would write the grant, you give me the patient, and they'll give you a token of some part of the grant. That's the way it used to be. Today, we say, no, we just want to give you the patient. Let us help you write the grant, so we are participants and co-investigators. And I think we're getting proficient at that. The language of a clinical trial grant is very different. It's very much like poetry you mentioned. Yeah, if you don't write it properly, nobody understands it. It is not competitive. But we are getting better at that. I think a number of universities here in Nairobi and elsewhere are becoming very savvy, developing partnerships with the West, where they allow us to build capacity and we become the principal investigator. So, for example, we had the first study that we did in the CRU with the tocilizumab for COVID. It's approved today with the highest enrollment in Africa. We had a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is like the gold standard. We said tocilizumab is quite expensive, has to be given in the ICU. What could we do in Africa if COVID were to come back and attack the lung? We know that what kills a patient with COVID, at least at the high times of COVID, was the inflammatory response in the lung. The virus is gone, your immune system has killed the virus, but the immune system is now attacking your lung because that's where the virus was. So we said, why don't we just sort of ameliorate the immune response of the patient? We gave a low dose of radiation therapy to the lung, 100th of the dose that I would give for lung cancer. And that was very effective. Low-dose radiotherapy for COVID cost $25. Tocilizumab costs at least thousands of dollars in the ICU. Now, to write that particular clinical trial required a certain amount of language. So we partnered with somebody in the West to say, by the way, how do we do it right? We wrote it together. So I think we developed that skill. It comes with time. And I think we're getting better at it. The more you do it, it's like cycling. You will then be able to cycle and go into a motorbike and then go into something faster. I think we are getting better at it. But we have to be at the start line of these kinds of clinical trials and compete and learn from experience.
Talk about regulation again. What's the nexus between the various bodies? So, for example, drugs are regulated by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board.
Correct.
Research is regulated by NACOSTI, the National Commission of Science, Technology and Innovation. And then the entire Ministry of Health, when it comes to cancer, There's a body that has been established to deal with cancer matters, the National Cancer Institute. What's the nexus? How do you then, where does KU, the Aga Khan Hospital rather, come in?
So you point, it is a little bit of a soup. The NCI Kenya is responsible for cancer care in Kenya.
Right.
The PPP, as you say, is the regulatory body. There's Nakosti. There is always some bodies report to the Ministry of Education, other bodies report to the Ministry of Health, other bodies report elsewhere. I think we need a unified way to be able to all be on the same platform and do things not in silos and not sequentially, but in combination, in parallel, together. That's what happened when COVID came about. Everybody sat down on the table to say, this is killing our patients, they're killing our people, it's causing money to the environment and the economy, let's work together. I think we need a conversation. And my hope is that people listening to Spice today will say, let's have a conversation. We are beginning to have that conversation, but it has to be really accelerated for us to have a place at the platform where decisions are made. Because the decisions are made in the West, we have to be as competitive as our colleagues in the West.
So right now at the Aga Khan University, as you're conducting the clinical trials, who do you deal with? When you, you get the funding, yes, you are conducting this trial, and then you've got a patient who's coming, and you've got a drug that you are using and testing. Must those drugs first be approved by the PPB before you put them into trial? And that means that they are existing drugs. Who is regulating your relationship between the university and the patient, going all the way to whatever outcome? How does that work practically at Aga Khan University?
So the clinical trial drug is called the investigational product because it is being investigated. So either we write a trial, which we'll call investigator-initiated trial, or a pharmaceutical brings a trial. It has to be reviewed by the scientist, by the scientific review within AKU to say, is it really right science? Do we have the right patients? Then the human subject protection body reviews it for ethics to say, by the way, are we... I come from Birmingham, Alabama, where I train, and Tuskegee, Alabama was not very far away. And you remember, there were hundreds of African Americans who had syphilis, who were observed for nearly 40 years, even when penicillin was available, was not given to them. We do not want to do that anymore. Now, we have some episodes here that you know very well, where people were told you can go to heaven if you starve yourself. Well, that was unethical work, but yet was done under the guise of being helpful. So we have a Human Subject Protection Board at AKU, at all institutions, to be sure that our studies are ethical and do the right thing for the patient and not just in the interest of science. When that's approved, it goes to the PPB, who reviews it once again, both for science and for ethics. The trouble we have is when the PPB changes a comma here or there, it's going to go back to the IRB and vice versa. So those are the ping pong that results in stagnation. After the PPB approves it, it goes to Nakosti. Nakosti says this can be done in Africa, and then the Ministry of Health will certify to say that you can get the medication into the country, or you can send out blood samples for testing. So those are the regulatory authorities. So when I have a patient, by that time, it's all said and done, but it's taking too long from the time I get a clinical trial to time I can put a patient on study. Yeah.
What needs to shorten that time? What needs to happen so that time can be shortened?
Good question. I think we should do things not in silos, one after the other, sequentially, but together. We should have in the US, you have a centralized Human Subject Protection Board. Every protocol goes there. For example, if you have 3 sites conducting the same clinical trial, why can't one Human Subject Protection Board review that study, which has been done in 3 different populations, in 3 different institutions? It's the same protocol. I think we need to have a conversation about how to expedite that. And as you see, it is in our benefit that these drugs come to our patients to be tested to say, do they work for us or not, before we really spend big amounts of money using these drugs. For certain hypertension, for example, the African-American male in the US has a different form of hypertension. The drugs that work for them do not work well for the Caucasians. The same thing should be studied here in Africa on our patients. We finally have units like the CRU at AKU and other places within Kenya where we are as good as the West. We just have to have a regular system, be nimble, and then we have to promote that our population are willing to come and be participatory on clinical trials and should not feel like they're being guinea pigged. This is our chance. And the last thing I would say is every drug I use in cancer today was a clinical trial drug some years ago. Some patient was willing to be part of a study. And the motto of the clinical trials unit at AKU is the drug called hope, Tumaini. If not for me, it is for the people who will come after me. And that is the modus operandi that we, the population, should adopt about clinical research.
Prof, the research community, since we're talking about cancer, let me say specifically the cancer research community, who ensure that they're up to date with the wherewithals of that particular area, of that discipline. The IRBs, NACOSTIs, and all the people up to the ministries, does the research community ensure that these people keep up? Because you're talking of delays. If you have an IRB who don't understand certain things, there'll be a back and forth. It's not that they're being obstructive, they don't understand. If you have people in NACOSTI who don't have, say, the knowledge that you have, there'll be even further delays. What are the steps that the research community, the cancer research community, take to ensure that the knowledge base that they have is the same knowledge base that the people on whom they depend to authorize the operationalization of their projects have?
Yes, people at Spice want to get me into trouble. I think it is true. Science has moved along.
Moves quickly, yes.
Yeah. And it is true that we may have institutional bodies that have not moved with the times. But it's fair to say that a number of the institutional bodies realize that the membership that they have may not be at the cutting edge of research of things being done today. They may be a little bit behind the scene, but there are modus operandi whereby the Institutional Review Board gets in external reviewers to review a study based upon the new science. I think we have to also accept the fact that our institutional bodies have to grow with the times, and that we cannot have membership that is a membership that's reviewed studies using infectious diseases, HIV, TB, malaria. The things have changed. Just like I have to keep up with what I call precision medicine, where I am not just a breast cancer expert today and a colon cancer expert tomorrow. I target the gene that be responsible for those diseases. I agree with you that we as a society have to also change bodies, bring new membership, bring new blood of individuals who are experts. But I think it's fair to say that we are realizing that we do get external opinions from other external bodies, but then it also causes stagnation and slows the system down. But I think we may, just like we do in the government, renew the people who are responsible for reviewing things that benefit, impact our patients.
Just burn that cabinet as well.
While we're at it.
Prof, if somebody would like to participate in a clinical trial, how do they go about it?
You know, since I'm not a salesman, I do not know the websites, etc. But if they call AKU Clinical Research Unit, they call the AKU number to say, I want to be sent to the Clinical Research Unit. They will talk to Ann Kabuki. She will list you in, will tell you what clinical trials we have, will come and see you, evaluate you, and we have a whole team of individuals. One thing I can tell you is I've been totally impressed by the staff in Kenya, the people we recruited to train. Incredible talent. They are as good, if not better, than the team I had in the US who did phase 1 studies. So I think we have the talent. We have people who are committed to the cause of helping this population. I think we, the regulatory system, the federal government, and also society as a whole has to make sure that we get the best to our people, and clinical trials is one way to do it. So if they call AKU and want to be connected to the CRU, we will take care of them.
All right. AKU is the Aga Khan University. The CRU is the Cancer and Clinical Research Unit. And the person who's been talking to us is the founding director of this unit, Professor Mansoor Saleh. Thank you very much, Prof, for speaking to us. And we wish you all the best as you continue doing this work. It's a noble work. Keep it here for more conversations. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. Government services are expected to continue uninterrupted even after President William Ruto fired all cabinet secretaries and the Attorney General on Thursday. In a televised address, Ruto said principal secretaries will oversee government operations as he looks to inject fresh blood into his cabinet. The president says he wants to make the government lean, inexpensive and efficient.
During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted under the guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials. I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course.
It's emerging that arrogance and corruption are among reasons why President William Ruto fired his cabinet secretaries. Some analysts say the cabinet secretaries failed to carry out their duties properly 2 years after they were appointed. The president is also said to have blamed himself for the recent chaos in the country, saying that he failed by trusting a cabinet that eventually failed him. Before the cabinet was sent home, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi, who wasn't fired, had said that there was inaction in the government. Political affairs analyst Javas Bigambo says the president now has an opportunity to appoint qualified people to help him achieve his goals.
Mheshimiwa Rais amechukua hatua ya kutupilia mbali ama kufutilia mbali baraza la mawaziri, haswa kutokana na shinikizo la wananchi kwamba hawajaridhishwa na utendakazi wa baraza la mawaziri, ambayo pamoja imeambatana na kauli ya rais ya hapo awali kwamba baadhi ya mawaziri na makatibu hawana taarifa na uelewi mkubwa sana wa wizara zao. Na jambo lingine ni kuwa wananchi pia wamekuwa na tashwishi kubwa sana na ule jinsi ambavyo baadhi ya mawaziri katika serikali mawaziri ambao wametolewa sasa hivi wamekuwa wakiishi maisha ya kifahari tofauti na umaskini uliokithiri nchini.
Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi has denied claims that his government has failed to set aside land that will be allocated to the public. Wamatangi termed the claims by some individuals as defamatory, saying that 10% of public land will be occupied by the lower cadre workers within the industrial park.
These regulations mandate private developers to allocate land for public facilities such as schools, hospitals, fire stations, recreation. Regulation 9, 3 and 4 of the Physical and Land Use Planning, Development, Permission and Control General Regulations 2021 further adds, where required by the county executive member, suitable and adequate land shall be surrendered by the applicant at no cost to the county government for open spaces, amenities, recreational facilities, road reserves, a public purpose relating to the area to be subdivided for road or widening, for road widening.
Wamatangi further blamed Tatu City over its failure to allocate public land since its formation.
Our track record on public land speaks for itself. As governor, I have consistently prioritized the protection and proper utilization of public land, and this is a position that I will not bend or compromise. This is the position I expressed during my first meeting with Tatu City management, including Preston, on December 8th, 2023. I also wish to clarify that the county government of Kiambu has requested land to be surrendered by Tatu City solely for public utility purposes. Contrary to the allegations, my administration is not seeking land for personal or individual use.
Medical interns will not be demonstrating at Afya House today, having suspended the strike over what they described as a gesture of goodwill. They've been protesting at Afya House since Monday, expressing frustrations over years of waiting for the official posting after completion of their studies. However, the interns have said that they'll resume a day sit-in and night vigil at the Health Ministry's headquarters next Monday in the event that the internship crisis is not solved over the weekend. In the meantime, they've said that they'll convene internally to deliberate on the next steps. That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay. So this morning, traffic is not too bad. We have some traffic on Landis getting out towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. And on the Thika Superhighway, we're just looking at survey, then coming in through towards the city. And then on Jago Road, there's some traffic that's still left. We have to deal with that. Coming off of Kangunda Road. But we've seen some outbound traffic, especially on the A104, heading out towards Kangemi, out in that general direction. So we're going to watch over that over the weekend. Let's what happens through to traffic hour, which is where we are right now. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So it is now 7 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's The Situation Room, live from Nairobi to the world on SpiceFM, KTN Home, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, X, Radio Garden, and everywhere. And thank you very much to everybody who's tuning in. Prof has told us very, very many good things that the Aga Khan University is doing. Now let's tell you about what the Aga Khan University Hospital is also doing, and they're bringing healthcare closer to you.
Indeed. The most recently established Roy Sambu Specialty Care Centre at the Jewel Plaza, which is right on the Roy Sambu roundabout. And what does this do? Ensures that certain treatments or medical care that you would be looking for, you will find available close to where you work and close to where you live. It's just one that has been established. One would think that many more would be established around the city or around other places, because that's the plan. That can we get universal health care right where you need it, and you don't have to go too far to get it. So what can you find at the centre? This has happened a lot today. You see now?
Start with the gastro thing.
No, those are the experts, gastroenterologists, surgeons. We're talking about oncologists, folks who are there to deliver certain services such as endoscopy, chemotherapy, dialysis, as well as surgery through the day. So look, whatever you would travel far to get in terms of medical care, you can get it right at the centre, right next to you.
Wanachukuanga medical, yes. Yeah. Especially if you have a Jubilee Health Insurance medical product, you can go there. It's one of the 700 odd health facilities across the country that will accept Jubilee Health Insurance. So what do they do, Jubilee Health? Jubilee Health have very many products. They have for seniors. They have products for seniors.
They do actually. They do.
I wasn't pointing at it.
Yes, they do.
You were just naming things.
Yes, they most certainly do. They do. Plus, in the event that you're traveling and you need insurance, they offer something really attractive. It's called the Premium International Cover.
Yeah.
And it covers you up to, in dollars here, $4.5 million US.
Imagine.
Yes.
After you've paid how much?
Look at it this way.
No, it's up to. So it depends on how much
you want. It's up to. Meaning, it's not as though you appear there.
What's your cover?
And they ask you what's your bank account and they send you 4.5 million. No. That's not how it works.
That would have been cool.
Yes. No. It's you have a limit of $4.5 million US. That is a great deal of money. Can keep you healthy for a long time.
This is true.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. How do you get any of those products from Jubilee Health Insurance? You can go to their website, www.jubileeinsurance.com. That is .com. Okay. Or you can call them
at 0709 949 000.
Bas. Very good. You're doing very well, Sweetie.
Thank you so much.
You can also send an SMS to the number 40643. That's 40643. Write the word health. That's enough. Health. That's enough, and they'll sort you out. Okay? Later, as we're taking the traffic break, we'll tell you how you can watch the Euro 2024 finals on Sunday.
On Sunday?
Yes.
The second Saturday of the weekend.
We'll tell you about that. For now, City, remind us the day's proverb.
I will. Our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the island nation of Sao Tome and Principe. Yes. A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
I've met one.
Okay.
Continue.
So you've been to hell.
Okay,
I'm back and I'm still standing.
All right. So how is it there? Is it as bad as they say?
Worse.
But you survived.
Imagine.
But you are alive.
Imagine.
The girl who went to hell is alive. Isn't she not? She's still alive.
She's still alive.
I think she went to the heaven version of hell.
That girl who went to hell, she's still alive.
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. Constitution of Kenya. We are not going to do with chapter 1. We know chapter 1 very, very well. Don't we know chapter 1 very, very well?
We the people.
That's the preamble.
That's the preamble to the Constitution.
The chapter 1 of the Constitution. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read chapter Article 152 of the Constitution. The Cabinet. The Cabinet consists of, please fold your fingers, the President, the Deputy President, the Attorney General.
Yes.
Not fewer than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries.
Count them all on my feet. I don't have.
No, the other one you can just do like this.
Just do like this. Okay, so
not fewer than 14, not more than 22. Okay? And it ends there.
Okay.
That is the cabinet.
That is it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
With the duties of discharge?
Yeah?
What duties of...
kazi sasa ya cabinet ni mingi. Kazi ya cabinet sasa kutoka hapo, cabinet ni mingi. They should not be a member of parliament and all those things. And the job of the cabinet, a decision by the cabinet shall be in writing. The cabinet shall act in accordance with the law, provide parliament with full and regular reports concerning matters under their control. But then there's also another office that serves there, and it's the office of the secretary to the cabinet, which is an office in the public service. Okay? Secretary to the Cabinet. President William Ruto announced his cabinet soon after he was sworn in as president, right? Mm-hmm. So he nominated members of his cabinet. They were vetted by parliament. They were appointed. Yesterday, President William Ruto dismissed the entire cabinet bar one member that he had appointed. And this is Musalia Mudavadi, who has the title of Prime Cabinet Secretary and Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Mm-hmm. Sawa. Mm-hmm. The other 21 members, home. Are we together so far?
So far.
Actually, is it 21 or 22?
21. The 22nd is still in office. Okay? 21 members have gone home. The 22nd member of a cabinet, that's the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, is still in office.
With Mudavadi, he's 23.
No. The other person is the Attorney General.
Yes.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So the Attorney General has also gone home. Remember, City, there are not more than 14 and not less than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. Mm. And then the other cabinet members are the Attorney General, the Deputy President, and the President.
Uh-huh.
You get it now?
I have
now we are together.
Completely.
Now we are together.
Because if you add Attorney General, who's member of cabinet,
but not a cabinet secretary.
Not a cabinet secretary.
Yes.
And then you have a cabinet prime.
Yes.
Who is also
a secretary.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
And the secretary to the cabinet is not a cabinet secretary.
Neither are the advisors.
Yes. Neither are the advisors.
I've now got it.
Now you get it?
I've got it completely.
Okay. So now that they've gone home, we have issues here.
Which one?
The issues here is that Kenya needs a cabinet.
Does it?
Yes.
Why?
So the president shall have to name a new cabinet. Okay? Because decisions of government are made by...
And the Constitution requires
that there shall be
named.
Yes. Okay. But there's a window within which then the president must operate, and that is when so that you can have a quorum for cabinet. Okay? No. Now, where we are, the question now is, what next? What is it that people want to see next? Of course, they want to see a reconstitution of the cabinet. Who do they want to see in that cabinet? What is it that they want to see from the individual members who joined that cabinet, including the Attorney General. What do they want to see? What do they expect of the people who will join this cabinet going forward? Apart from this cabinet, what else do they want to see? Do they want to see a full 22-member cabinet? Does it have to be 22? Can it be the minimum of 14?
I think that one of the things that was very clear from the constitution of this cabinet that was sent home yesterday, however you want to take it, is that some of these appointments were made because of loyalty. Yes. Some of these appointments were made because, because of, the right, quote unquote, right political affiliations, which in my opinion, you should not see when it comes to the constitution of a cabinet that is going to run government. That it should not be your friends and the people who owe you whatever kind of political allegiance that should make up how a country should be run. We see it too often, and it should not be. People are waiting in line to get some kind of favor or to kind of get some establishment for the loyalty that they gave you prior to you becoming the head honcho of the nation. Right?
Yes.
We saw this. It was clear. And that is what led to some of the tales of incompetence then that came thereafter. And these are not words that are just put together in the sky. These words of incompetence fell from the mouth of the president himself, whereby the questions, if the person who appointed you at some point starts to have to ask questions about your competence and whether it is you actually do know what you're doing, then we've got a bigger problem here, right?
Yes.
So I think across board, one thing that everybody wants to see, do not use these positions that are so critical to the running and development of government to reward your political cronies, to reward your people, or to do a favor for somebody who might come and scratch your back in the future. That's the first thing I think people do not want to see. People do not want to see individuals who are going to come in and then continue to tell woes and tales of wastage. People do not want to see that. Now, what people want to see, I would want to see, is that there are individuals who are, number one, worth their salt, who are going to be brought in a position of merit, and who understand what is supposed to happen with a particular docket when it comes to its development, when it comes to its proper usage of funds, when it comes to then just making sure that the thing that you are supposed to do is actually done. No fancy stories. And I think in this case, it's simple. No fancy stories, no Somebody who is well-versed in these things that they're supposed to do, who is a technocrat of sorts, and somebody who, for goodness sake, is not going to come and rob the thing dry. That's not what we are looking for. Can you actually have people who will come in and just do their job? Not this rewarding of political favors or expediency or ensuring that somebody can get rich off the back of the country. No. To actually come in and get the job done and stop this business of rewarding people because they stood on a car roof and said your name 3 times before the cock crowed. Stop it.
What if those who are rewarded are actually competent? And that they have merit.
It would
and
be great
this
to
merit,
see.
This merit, what is it that we are considering?
What's the merit thing?
Yes. Yeah. Is it that you have qualifications? Or is it that
or
you
we've
have a
seen
track
you
record?
in another capacity actually work the thing and it works. That we've seen you actually work before.
Yes.
Yeah. To be very honest, if you gave somebody who happens to be your friend, is loyal to you, but is actually able to think, and if you shake the head like this, more than 2 things knock each other, and then they can actually show you that they've done something in the past, by all means. But unfortunately, this number that we saw go home, how many can you count on one hand?
Assuming I can count on one hand.
What is assuming that you can count on one hand in order for that to happen?
Since you've asked the question, yeah. So what if they're your friends, and what if they qualify? What if they represent everything that you want to see in a cabinet?
What do you do then?
The regional balance, the face of Kenya, the composition of the national executive shall reflect the regional and ethnic diversity of the people of Kenya. Article 129, 132 of the Constitution.
The ethnic diversity seems to look at the geographical area you come from. What if I'm of mixed race or mixed communities? Don't I represent that face of Kenya?
Then you're representing 2. So
I mean,
added advantage.
Even better.
What if my grandmother came from
Two in one
place, my grandfather, and by the time you come to me, I'm represented by 4 different communities.
El Fantastico, because
That's
now
fine.
you're the one that you're looking for.
That's perfect.
You see, the demands must be made, and one mustn't lose sight, though, of what it is that we want. Even if someone qualifies, how then will we measure their capacity to have
do the
integrity? They may be, technically, they may be competent. How do we then determine that this is a person who will actually do right? Because there is you're an engineer, you've trained, for example.
Yes.
But how do we know that you are not going to reduce the size of the road? You're not the sort of person who will collude with the contractor so that instead of there being 1.5 meters, there's 1.25 meters. How do we know you're not that sort of person?
Simbo. The president shall nominate you, and your name shall be forwarded to Parliament.
Right.
And Parliament shall conduct a vetting.
Judiciously.
And in that vetting, they will invite for public participation.
Yes.
And anybody who has ever dealt with you and seen and noticed that you did the thing that you're saying, reduce the size of the road by 1/4 inch, and you ate the inch, right?
For 100 kilometers.
For 100 kilometers, shall have the opportunity to come to Parliament and actually present that and say,
Yes.
you know what, this person, from their past performance, they don't have integrity. And that is the importance of that parliamentary process. That is why the Constitution says these people will be vetted before they are appointed.
It'll come out. These things come out of the woodwork. They do, especially if it's put in the public eye in the manner in which it's supposed to, and not throttled like we've often seen happens when it comes to vetting in Parliament.
Yep.
The truth of the matter is that, well, how many times have we said it here that we even know that these nominations, what do we say? They will all go through They will all go through. Why? Because the process was not that which was looking for an issue. It was that which was saying, okay, here it is. It's been nominated by the president. Let's just go ahead and sign against it and let this thing keep on going. But if you have a process whereby truly, we're making sure that this person who is supposed to be in this seat actually doesn't have any issue when it comes to actually sitting in that position and doing what they ought to do, it will come out. It's like those people who say bands of marriage are being read. If anybody knows any just cause or whatever, why these two should not be joining, somebody will show up with a baby on her hip. Somebody will come out.
And there's usually a scuffle outside the church.
I'm telling you.
Somebody's being restrained coming into the church.
Something will come out.
And this is where now the issue comes in, right? Vetting happens in Parliament. And Parliament should be representing the views and the feelings of Kenya. And that's why when Parliament then calls and says, if you've got any issue that you can raise on this particular nominee, please come forward and bring it to us. Now, Parliament should then look at this and say, we shall do our job as we are supposed to do. And the issue of integrity cannot then be boiled down to those are issues of, give them fair administration, justice. They have not gone through the due process of the law. Or it was just, they were just taken to court. They had just been arrested, but you see, those were just... No. It should be, if this person has ever been investigated, an investigation file has been taken to the DPP. The DPP and the experts in law in the DPP's office have actually found that there is sufficient evidence to take to court. And this person has been taken to court and they have been charged on something. Then that person has questions on their integrity, whether the process has actually finished or not. Unless we are saying that we don't trust our investigating agencies and we don't trust our DPP or DPP, unless we are saying that. But if those are some of the issues that now we need to be more strict on.
So in essence, we're saying that when we follow due process, and we will be demanding that if there's even the slightest whiff of a scandal, until it is settled, you cannot vie for public office.
No. And I think it's got to be, it has got, you see, the level of seriousness that you apply to a process to get somebody put in a position is the level of seriousness that person is likely to hold that position with and say, my God, look at what I was actually put through. I'm not going to, it just happens like that. I'm not going to want to put a stain on this. You know why? That's why you have people whereby somebody in an office somewhere, a kettle was missing. Kettle, ile ya kuboil maji, was missing. The woman resigned. Why? It is the stain on the office, and you don't want, if we bring you through that process, and there's something that's going to then stain that image as a result of everything that you've done, you'd rather even leave it. That somebody who will actually say, you know what, yes, that this was my track record, this is what I did, and now being in that position, I'm going to take it just as seriously. But if you start with unseriousness at the very beginning, what do you think is going to happen through and through? Now, one question that has come up with this is that did everybody that fell under the axe
have faced questions of integrity?
No. Well, okay, you could ask that as well. But did everybody face questions of incompetence? Is it true that the 21 cabinet secretaries
were all incompetent?
And there was actually nothing happening in their ministries, which now led to this thing that we saw yesterday? Or did everybody now suffer blanket condemnation as a result of what is happening in the country? Did the president really feel that each 21, except for Prime, that all 21 of them actually were doing doggone nothing for the last 2 years?
Maybe not.
There you go.
Maybe not. And just like Mwai Kibaki did in 2005, just dismiss everybody and let's start afresh, clean slate. Maybe that's what he's looking at, the president, and saying, you know what, so let's just remove everybody and let me review everybody's performance afresh. If there are 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or 15 who I feel were doing the good job, let them come back. They will be vetted by Parliament. If the public has sufficient ground to reject these people, then they'll be rejected, right? And maybe that's what he should do. And say, if there are some of them that he actually has confidence in, because I agree with you. I mean, we cannot just sit maybe and say that all 21 who've gone home were all equally incompetent. Maybe some were more incompetent than others.
I think that some of the incompetence maybe now stained others. So it was so bad that now it touched others. But I don't think everybody.
But then the question is, we say that fish rots from the head, don't we?
We do, and it actually does.
Yes, it does. In reality, it does. That's why you look at the gills. You don't look at the
tail.
Yeah, not only that, a fish doesn't have eyelids, so it's not going to shut its eyes. So,
it doesn't have eyelids?
No, it doesn't have eyelids.
They blink like this.
Yes.
They blink from down up. Okay. Anyway.
My point is, sometimes somebody can exist in an ecosystem where the very thing that you're supposed to do is difficult. So, are we saying that of all these people we have here, in the difficult ecosystem that we had, that none of them were able to perform irrespective and despite the problems that they have? If the ethos within the cabinet was, and I use this as an example, I'm not stating a fact.
Okay.
The ethos was, say for instance, that everyone who is in cabinet must ensure that they perform according to the requirements of the office and that they will publish the results of what they do on a monthly basis. Okay? Let's say that was a requirement. Now, if that was a requirement, would we say when we look at these ministers who have been told to all go home, that there are any of them who, even if it was every 2 months, who took the point of ensuring that they tell the employers who are the sovereign that this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and this is where we want to go with it? Or, if you converse it, a situation where the unwritten ethos in the cabinet was, whatever job you have been given, you must ensure that you amass as much as you possibly can in the shortest time possible. Again, as an example.
Of course.
Yes.
So shouldn't we ask the question then? And maybe it's uncomfortable, but if you are in the position whereby you appointed incompetent people, should we also not be looking at you?
It isn't should we not. We must look at you because you are the appointing officer.
There you go.
You cannot escape the glare of light here, because if we shine the glare of light on the appointees, then we must shine on the yes, we must. And we must ask, explain the criteria. And if what we're seeing has happened, then we can say it is clear the criteria didn't work.
Okay. which paints the focus on you.
The focus on you didn't work, but the criteria used for choosing the people who you've now determined should actually take a break. Okay? Remember in an earlier hour we had asked if indeed there were some people in cabinet whom the president himself mentioned were clearly not up to the task. Was that not the point at which they should have stepped aside?
Yes. But that's why the question of integrity is really, really important.
Yes.
Okay. Some of the things are happening here, and we are at a very, very good point in our country because we are testing the constitution in all manners.
Yes, we are.
All manners, always, where people are coming up and saying, no, we are not happy with this government. All right? Where we are seeing the president then responding in one way or another. And one of the responses is this one of saying, I am going to reconstitute this government. All right? Now, the other question is the matters that matter. Chapter 6 of our constitution is an integral part of our constitution. And this is one that says that we shall have leaders with moral authority and integrity. Because if you have people with integrity and of integrity, then those questions emerge. If you sit and you see that there's so much public outcry and low public trust and confidence in the work that you're doing in your ministry or in your docket, then you go to your appointing authority and say, Mr. President, I think the people are just not happy with what I'm doing. I want to go and perform some lighter duties. All right?
Yes.
And this is where you live. And you live on that point of, I am hearing you guys just don't think, and you think I'm letting down this government. I step aside.
If you look at the lived ethos.
You have brought issues, so much issues of the fertilizer. Yes, there was substandard fertilizer. It was not fake, it was substandard, it was anything, but it happened on my watch. And I take responsibility.
Yes.
Mea maxima culpa.
Exactly.
I go home. But not saying that, no. But
the no's were plenty.
But I did my job.
At the beginning with the Kenya National Trading Corporation, you bring in all manner of goods and services. And the understanding was, wananchi are going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
Because now you'll have a situation where people can buy good products, quality products at a much reduced price. There's a lot of kerfuffle about it. There's a lot of noise about it. There's razzmatazz. And then it vanishes. And the very thing that you are told is not what happened. I mean, you're talking about things that were said to have been done in one way and were intended for one, and then it turned out to be something quite different. The question I was going to ask is this. When you have a situation where action has taken place, should we then now focus on the gains of what has happened as we look at the past for lessons and understand what it is that got us here? Why do I say this? It is not the first time in this country that we've had protests. It is not the first time that changes have been made. It is not the first time that something monumental has happened. Repealing of the Section 2A was monumental because now multipartyism came in. Okay? There are many things of that nature. We had a referendum. I used to read about it, then I participated in one. Okay? It was monumental. All these were points at which we're supposed to learn valuable lessons to move the country forward. Did we take the right steps? And did we look back at what had happened that led us there? Like now, here we are. Our lessons being learned. People have been killed. And in each of these things I mentioned, people died. And usually they were young people who died. Okay? People keep saying lessons were learned. Now, when you learn a lesson, they ought to be a manifestation of that learning having been internalized. If you look at the conduct of those who have been in power, whether it is parliament or whether it's a cabinet, you have to wonder, what lesson were they learning? Because the manifestation is there. But what were they learning? Were they taking stock of what we ought to take stock of chances that we've had as a country and which we have missed? Because if we don't, even this one, which has arrived at us.
Clearly they didn't.
Yes.
And I think this is why the importance now shifts.
Yes.
From expecting them to take lessons.
Yes.
To being we, the people, taking lessons.
Yes.
After 2010, it has become clear. It is now in letter, not just in spirit, in letter, that we, the people, are the sovereign. That this is our country. That we exercise our sovereign power ourselves. we go once in every 5 years, in the second Tuesday of August, every fifth year, to delegate some of that power to elected representatives to perform it on our behalf.
Some, and they don't. They think it's all.
Not all.
Some
of that power. Okay. Now we are at a point where we are woke. It's about time. If we set the standards on integrity, if we set the standards on the kind of leadership that we want, if we set the standards on the kind of conversations that we want to have in this country, they will follow suit. Anybody else who we elect and put into office will follow suit, because it'll be clear. The employer has actually set the terms of reference.
Yes.
You are given a job description, a clear job description. So far what's been happening is that the candidate comes with their job description and gives it to us. And we say, okay. And then we start asking them, but you told us that you can come to work at 8 a.m. You say, yeah, but I've just changed it now to 8:30 because the sun rises at 7. 24 minutes to 9. Let's take this quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll open the phone lines. The cabinet has been disbanded. The president is going to reconstitute this cabinet. He says he is looking at creating a leaner, more efficient and more responsive government. What are those elements of that kind of government? So what next? How do you vet the president, the cabinet? How many members should this cabinet have going forward? Must we have all 22 plus Attorney General plus Deputy President plus President? Must we have all 25?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
baba boy, gas imeisha, shopping imeisha, na ujue tokens bado zinalia.
Msupa, nipe mbao na 20 minutes.
Mbao, like 20 bob. 20 minutes, kwani kuna nini? Na ujue mimi nataka kupika haki.
Jaber, kwani ujui dakika mamilini every 20 minutes, halafu wanapea na 10 million every 20 minutes, na hadi kuna 3 millionaires every hour.
Taka mamili virahisi. Uko na nafasi 3 ya kuwa millionaire kila hour. Usipitwe, cheza daka, ushike mita yako sasa. Chagua nambari zako 4 za bahati and win up to 10 million every 20 minutes. Nenda kwenye paybill 440440. Account, spice, amount. Cheza na shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000 na ushinde mamilioni. Daka mita, kuwa bingwa.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning is 14. Highs of
spice up your life.
Traffic on Ngong Road heading into the cities where we'll see movement today. Also coming off of Jogo Road heading towards Landis. Landis is still pretty busy. And this roundabout, then coming in from Muranga Road is Globe Cinema roundabout. That is busy. On the Thika Superhighway, not letting up just yet. Coming in from Survey, and on Kiambu Road, we see some traffic coming out through towards Muthaiga Square. That's the worst of it this morning, really, except on Juja Road, then going towards Outer Ring. There's a lot of traffic then trying to find its way to the Allsop stage, so we're going to watch out for that and see how that opens up later. Just in case, give us a shout. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, our conversation continues for the next 20 minutes, and this is what happens next. We saw the president disband his cabinet. The Constitution says that the national executive of the Republic of Kenya shall comprise of the cabinet. And the cabinet is the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not fewer than 14, not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. When the president constituted his government, he appointed the full suite of 22 cabinet secretaries and an attorney general. And of course, he was elected alongside his deputy. So now that they've gone home, minus the one who's left, should they come back as 22?
Who come back?
No, should the president appoint another 22?
Okay.
So I'm just thinking, in this era where it's about austerity measures and all those things, yes, we are going to look at the quality of the people who join the cabinet, okay? But should they be the full suite of 22 cabinet secretaries? Or should they be, can he work with a minimum of 14? Can he reduce it to 18? Can he work with 16?
Let's go to the subject of austerity measures. What does it mean? Because 22 cabinet secretaries means cost. Because it's not just 22 cabinet secretaries. 22 cabinet secretaries, many other things that follow.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the question of efficiency. Is it possible to run this government with 14 cabinet secretaries or 15? I dare say the answer is yes, you can. How will he reconstitute it? How will he ensure that the country gets the benefit of everything that it requires? And in my mind, the answer is not as complicated as it seems. Okay? Given how many state agencies and government sponsored entities that we have in this country, if you look at the functions that each of them have, all of them have an affiliation directly with a ministry.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's for service delivery.
Yeah.
Now, one, how many of them need to stay as they are and how many of them need to be merged? Okay? I ask because when you start from there, you will certainly find that you can be a lot more efficient if you have a unit where you are a separate entity. That separate entity becomes a section of a larger unit, given what it does and the functions. Now, I understand that specialization is what people are looking for, so that you see efficiencies when you have all these bodies. However, if you look at the ministries as we have them, and you look at the state departments in ministries, you cannot say that the functions have been compromised simply because they're a state department within a ministry. So it's that same thinking. Now, if you merge them, that same thinking will prevail, in my opinion. So you may not need all the ministries that you're speaking about to do the very thing that you are, because there are ministries that you can see have some correlations. For instance, if you look at, say, water, and say the Ministry of Mining, okay, and the Ministry of Agriculture, everything there has to do with the earth and land. I'm just giving layman's example.
And the Ministry of Land.
Yes, exactly. You see? So, who would be best placed to be able to manage these entities as we see them? I'm giving this as an example, all right? If the interest is to actually get efficiency, then you will look for people who are able to actually do that very difficult thing that you want. Somebody who can multitask, somebody has a capacity to understand how to make these things function. They are such people. Not looking for people who have the basic. No. We've gone beyond basic. You want somebody who's on top of their game. Somebody who this one has a proven track record. They're able to do this, and this.
So you think it's possible to actually have 14 cabinet secretaries?
Yes.
14 ministries?
Yes.
And then we have 49 state departments. Do you think it's possible to operate with half of that?
Yes.
20 state departments?
Yes. It is possible. It is very, very possible, because I simply go back to a time when they didn't exist. How exactly were we functioning?
Well, they were there. There was state department. There were principal secretaries. There were permanent secretaries.
Yes,
who
exactly.
Were heading
Exactly. You see, the reward system is part of the reason why we have this bloated human resource complement that we have.
It's a structure of our politics.
Yes, exactly. It is. So, and we also understand the nature of it, and we also understand why the reward system is in place. We understand it.
Yeah.
But Has it served the purpose it was supposed to? It hasn't.
It has not.
That's
and
the
that's
whole
why
point.
the Gen Zs are out on the streets. They're saying this structure of this government is not serving us.
Yes.
And it's got to be
It takes. That's what it does. And it does very well in taking. Okay? If it was producing the desired results, you wouldn't even look at it twice. You'd be very grateful that it exists. But when it doesn't, you're forced to look at it again and say, why exactly do we have all these things? Why?
And it's very clear and obvious that it doesn't work. And so then you have to take a knife to it. Look, I'm telling you, I think it's just along the same lines. I mean, we had a cancer conversation earlier, isn't it? And that when you see that something is not working, even if you look at it from a cutting perspective, you never hear a doctor say, okay, well, let's just cut out half of the cancer and let's leave the rest there for future date and see maybe if we can deal with it. No, you cut out the whole entire thing and then you see how it can then now regenerate, rather the healthy tissue regenerates on its own.
Yep.
Now, in this case, what we're saying is that I think there has been a lot of wastage. I think that there has been huge incompetence at play.
Yeah.
I think that there have been people who've been sitting in positions who have been subservient to the executive, and not necessarily because they want to come into a particular sector to do a job. And I think all of those things must be cleared and cut away. And that's why, number one, I don't think that if the issue of incompetence brought the sweep up of what we saw, then you have no business reinstituting any of those individuals back into a cabinet, number one. Number two, I think that the number ought to be reduced significantly, because I think the large numbers is what gives way to a lot of wastage, number one. And then they have just individuals who've seen, okay, well, it's a circus and party time and let's see what we can get out of this thing. That the business of government and leading a people and vanguarding their livelihoods has to be taken seriously. And I think for the longest time, it has not been taken seriously. And that's why you see the problems that we see today. It's not just in Kenya, it's replete in many other countries. So how serious are we taking the business of running the country and securing the livelihoods of Kenyans? And I think those are the things that have to be taken into consideration now. I don't care who's your friend. I don't care who smiled at you nicely when you're walking by. I don't care who sat with you on the plane every time you flew out when you were doing your campaigns. I don't care. Who is the person who is going to deliver on an agenda for the nation? If you are not ticking the boxes to answer that question, you have no business appointing somebody who doesn't tick those boxes. And I think until and unless we get very serious about that, we're just going to be going round and round in circles.
What do you think? 14 or 22?
I think.
Or in between?
What is the minimum?
14.
14.
Yeah?
14.
14 is the minimum number of cabinet secretaries as per the constitution.
So let's stick with it. With that 14.
Assume that's the maximum.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. You cannot go below 14 because I would have said do 10. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I asked you what the minimum is.
The minimum is 14.
Okay, so the minimum is 14. Start with that minimum, with that 14. What can we do where we are? Can you have two people, like CT is saying? I mean, it sounded funny, but it's actually true.
Yeah.
Can you have two of these things merged into one another? Into one?
Of course.
Absolutely you can. That's what I'm saying. How serious do you take it? By the way, it's the same thing. These relationships play one to the other, host and the other. It's even with human beings. How seriously somebody takes you, you will see the fruit of it. How serious you take this job that I'm doing, you will see the fruit. Nobody has to ask you. Nobody has to look for it. It'll be there in plain sight. Nobody has to tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, by the way, this guy for tourism is very serious. No, you will see. Oh, this person for lands, actually, they're not corrupt. No, you will see it. Okay. It's in plain sight. If somebody is taking you seriously with the things that they say, you will see it in the things that they do. It is manifested in action. And if you are not serious about putting people in those positions, because we're not saying you don't need them, you do. You actually need these individuals who are going to come and shape how government will perform for the country, for the people. You need it. But if you're not taking in people who are serious about the business of it, you're wasting time, you're wasting resources, and you are dashing the expectations and hopes of 55 million people against a rock every single day. Don't.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. Mr. Moral Values Mohammed from Wakijembe in Kwale County. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Wangwana, salamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Hamujambo nyote na baridi ya Nairobi.
Hatujambo.
Very good. Nimefurahi kuwasikia tena.
Asante sana.
The most important and very basic, crucial qualification for any cabinet secretary should be morally literate. And moral literate not only theoretically, it is even more important to be practically literate in moral and virtue. Otherwise, tutaimba usiku na mchana, nothing will happen. That is my contribution for this morning. Thank you, sir, and the lady.
Thank you very much.
Sana.
And mwalimu Muga pia.
Baba, nimeshukuru sana, asante.
Asante, mimi nimefurahi kusikia sauti yako mzee wetu.
Sisi pia tunashukuru sana bwana. Everything you've told us about the need to have moral leaders has now come to pass.
Yes.
Na tumesema asante.
Na to build up that one,
yep,
we have to start from our education system. We have to inculcate in our system or in our syllabus moral teaching, moral ethics.
Thank you, Mohammed.
From day one, from nursery mpaka huko mwisho, alafu tutanyooka. Bila hivyo tunapoteza wakati. Thank you, sir.
Asante. Eric in Washington, D.C.
Hey guys, this is Eric again. I have to thank you guys for a tremendous job, especially Mr. Latiff with the president about 2 weeks ago. I had to stay up until 1:30 at night just to catch you on that. And I think you felt sorry for him after a while. I could tell from your own body gestures that there was some sympathy you had for him on your part. Very quickly, Ms. Okoh, your own president, Obasanjo, whom I love, was on TV as well.
He's not the
yesterday
president.
When I was watching the case.
He's a former president.
Well, not anymore. That's true. Correction. That's not anymore. Former president. Yes. And if you just watch the man's humility and his continence, the way he was so contemplative, and you compare him to the Kenyan president. I understand the age difference and so on, but humility and modesty should really be a virtue. And finally, to Mr. Muga. Mr. Muga is so prescient. He actually touched on this animal that is facing the Kenyan president right now. He's totally lost control. Remember, the whole thing initially was a financial bill. Repeat it. Right now, it has gone to where the entire cabinet has been decapitated before our very eyes. And what he must realize, like Mr. Muga did a couple of weeks ago, when I first heard CT, he's so contemplative, was that there's a momentum to this thing. And after a while, like William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, said, it becomes a beast. And you have to stay on top of it, like you're riding a tiger.
Yep.
And I'm watching the president today, and there's nothing in his body language, in his gestures. And by the way, you two journalists, and I put you at the very top, Latiff, because you're one of the very best in the country. You and John Allen Namu missed the signals as well. You guys were taken by surprise as an industry, as the entire executive of the presidency was. He came from far left, like we say from up here. Anyway, I want to thank all of you guys. You do a tremendous job. I stay up until 1:30 just to watch you.
Thank you, Eric. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick in Lower Kabete, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. How are you, Siti, Ndu, and Eric? I hope you're well.
We're very well.
Okay, so I'm a millennial by nature, not by nature, by age, and so I'm not gonna be a millennial by forever. But what I'm gonna say is this: we are looking for a lean government, and the lean government starts from the national government, and what the president does, the governors also do. So if he has a bloated government at the national level, there will be bloatedness in the county level, there will be bloatedness at the constituency level, and so on and so forth. You see, this discussion that you're having in terms of opulence and nepotism and all that started way back during the complaints of Kawira Mwangaza and her husband and her sister, that kind of thing, way back. And we have been complaining that this government we are really overrepresented. So I think, as the way Ndu has said, a start of 14 ministries is good for a start, because the country cannot function without a cabinet as per the constitution. But then we will be doing a very, very big disservice to ourselves if we don't also look at the state departments and the permanent secretary.
Right.
We have state departments that are also overlapping each other, and we need to stem the opulence in that. But the biggest fight I see in this particular case is that this opulence is coming from the proceeds of corruption. So we also need to see how we are able to fight corruption. I work in the financial services industries, and I can see this corruption firsthand through withdrawals of money through interest and those documents. I can tell you for the first half of the year, we have been also paying proceeds for locusts, to go and manage locusts somewhere.
Wow.
And locusts were a thing of I think 2021.
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
The money that was dispensed in terms of floods. When did the floods cease? Probably in the first quarter
last
of
month
this year. Okay, I'm saying like when it was really prevalent, like you say, in urban areas like Nairobi and all that, February, March, you can say thereabout. But that money is still being dispensed now, and we are still not seeing work going on in terms of drainage and all when you walk around the city, for example. Okay, so this thing. So what I'm trying to say is that these levels of corruption must be stemmed, and it must be stemmed through public participation. Because what we have, we the people, the preamble now, what people are talking about is we the people. We are the official oppositions in the country.
Okay.
And we must take our stand, because the opposition has let us down. They have been bought off. They have crossed over to the national side as MPs, and we need to be able to be civically responsible at individual level. The fourth estate must join us and shine a light on this corruption. Go back to investigative journalism that used to happen.
Thank you, Patrick. Points made. Points made. Asante sana. And thank you very much for the calls. We continue this conversation in the next hour. We'll be talking about, of course, what's happening in the country versus what has happened in other parts of this region with South Sudan. So what happens next? What do you see? What would you advise the president to do next in response to everything in the country that's going on?
I actually would not venture to advise the president. I will simply speak my opinion and what I think. There are always lessons to be learned, and we seem to have a habit of learning the wrong ones as a country. We have an opportunity to make meaningful change, and yet the meaningful change is always in the future. One doesn't see it. Now, the president has this opportunity, and these opportunities come once, because if I look at the past, people who've missed it, you miss it and it's gone, and you never regain it again. He has that opportunity to make the right decision. This president has the right energy. This presidency, this particular president is visionary enough to be able to do many things that we've thought needed doing and could not be done. Now, it's whether he's going to do it or not. It's that simple.
That's it.
It's really that simple.
I think it all comes from a place of what was his intention from the very beginning to dissolve. Was it from pressure, or did he really feel that things were going wrong? And I think that's what's going to be the leader in terms of what will happen next.
Okay. And I agree. I think the president has a unique opportunity now to actually shift this country into a different direction. He has been taking pride and, saying that because of the kind of campaign that he ran in 2022, which was focusing on economic issues, he changed the country's conversation from tribe to issue-based. He has the opportunity now. Maybe then it was just campaigning. Now is the time that he can actually move the country to the next step. Even if he just becomes the one who ignites it and then somebody else takes it up. But he has to do it now. Lean government, remove all this excessive fat from government.
X on cronyism.
Yeah, X on cronyism, because that's what leads up to where we are right now. Reduce your cabinet, reduce your principal secretaries, reduce the state agencies, remove advisors. We can all advise. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. Busia Senator Okoh has now called on President William Ruto to dissolve the Kenya Kwanza government and resign. Speaking in the Senate, Omtata said the president should go because Kenyans have lost faith in his leadership.
The entire Kenya Kwanza administration, led by Mr. Ruto, must vacate power. The call that Ruto must go is not an idle call. It's a call whose time has come. It's a call whose time has come. You cannot be told lies every day.
Omtata went on to emphasize that the president should resign over his handling of the recent protests that left at least 41 people dead.
Our children have died, something that has never happened in this country. The president has called them criminals, and the president cannot continue sitting in power when the children have died. And he said you do anything at whatever cost, when the Constitution says you can't do anything at whatever cost. Anything less than that will not avenge the blood that has been spilled on our streets. There's not even a call that these things should be investigated. Instead, they're trying to say that we go and have dialogue to assess, to see how to distort what is happening.
Nyeri County Assembly Majority Deputy Leader Duke Masira has praised President William Ruto for disbanding his cabinet. Addressing journalists in Nyeri, Masira, who is also the representative of Nyeri Ward, said the move is a clear sign that Gen Z's efforts have borne fruit. He has, however, advised the president to resign.
Ni kushinda kwa wana Gen Z kwa kazi mzuri wameisukuma serikali mpaka imeitikia. Kwa kweli hata mawaziri wenyewe wenye walikuwa wako wanajielewa. Kama mtu ajielewi hata kwa kazi kutimiza nao pia ni mwadhara. So kwa sasa tunasema shukrani rais wetu William Samoei Ruto. Kilichopakia tu ni wewe kung'atuka mamlakani, utoke ndio Wakenya sasa wapate fursa kamili ya kupigia rais mwenye wanataka. Urudi depe ukiweza wakuchague vizuri.
Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi has called on private developers to ensure they set aside a percentage of public land during their development planning. Wamatangi says this will ensure low-cadre workers have residential areas.
These regulations mandate private developers to allocate land for public facilities such as schools, hospitals, fire stations, recreation. Regulation 9, 3 and 4 of the Physical and Land Use Planning, Development, Permission and Control General Regulations 2021 further adds, where required by the county executive member, suitable and adequate land shall be surrendered by the applicant at no cost to the county government for open spaces, amenities, recreational facilities, road reserves, a public purpose relating to the area to be subdivided for road or widening, for road widening.
Wamatangi has further blamed Tatu City over its failure to allocate public land since its formation.
Our track record on public land speaks for itself. As governor, I have consistently prioritized the protection and proper utilization of public land, and this is a position that I will not bend or compromise. This is the position I expressed during my first meeting with Tatu City Management, including Preston, on December 8th, 2023. I also wish to clarify that the county government of Kiambu has requested land to be surrendered by Tatu City solely for public utility purposes. Contrary to the allegations, my administration is not seeking land for personal or individual use.
Rebranding, stealing or selling free sanitary towels provided by the state could land you in jail if a new bill is enacted. The Sanitary Towels Bill 2024 provides for free sanitary towels to all schoolgirls and women inmates. First offenders will face a 5 million shillings fine or 3 years in jail, while repeat offenders will be fined 10 million shillings or a 5-year jail term. The proposed law, which comes as a relief to many learners from poor backgrounds, is sponsored by nominated Senator Gloria Orwoba. It's been introduced in the Senate for the first reading. 7 people have died in a road accident involving a bus and a trailer near Katumba Trading Center on the Garissa Mwingi Road. Police say the bus driver rammed into the trailer that had stalled on the road due to a mechanical breakdown. The bus driver, who was ferrying 50 passengers from Garissa to Nairobi, attempted to overtake an unknown motor vehicle which did not stop, prompting him to get back to his lane. This, however, proved futile as the driver ended up ramming into the trailer. That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of traffic hour, but we're still seeing some traffic in the city this morning. Landys Road, for example, in and outbound traffic, very heavy and at a standstill in many spots. It's also still at a standstill on the thicker superhighway coming in through towards the Pangani Tunnel, so that's really busy. Kangunda Road still continues with beehive of activity there. And then also coming off of the Eastern Bypass, just past that airport junction turn off, there's still some traffic there heading out towards Cabanas. Okay, so that's really the worst of it for now. Keeping an eye on things. It's also quite busy on Gong Road as you come into the city, so let's see what happens as we get through it. We'll come out of traffic hour soon. We'll talk Spice FM. KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
On to the final hour of The Situation Room this week. Ndu.
Yes?
You forgot to tell us what's happening on Sunday. We know what's happening on Sunday. It's England versus Spain in the final of Euro 2024. But how can we watch it?
The Euro final, you can watch it actually wherever you are. If you've not been watching him live in HD, you know what you can do? You can download the Showmax app on your Google Play Store or Apple App Store. Do it today, now. Then, as you register and you pay what? 500 bob. And then you can watch anywhere you are. If you're on the road doing that road trip for the weekend or coming back into Nairobi because you know we got to go to work on Monday, or if you are just away from people who want to be watching other things and you want to watch the football, what do? Watch it on your mobile. And you can do that as we watch who will raise the Euro Cup come Sunday night.
Evo
too.
Bas. Now, I want to speak to people who are, in a group, a chama, and how you can get the best health insurance. The group micro cover, perfect for chamas and small groups. Chamas and small groups, Jubilee Health Insurance has a plan for you. The group micro cover is ideal for groups starting from 10 individuals. It offers comprehensive coverage for pre-existing and chronic conditions. Plus, you get free telemedicine services, local emergency road evacuation, ensuring peace of mind for everyone in the group. It's a fantastic option for this group that is looking to secure health together. So you just need to be like a minimum of 10. Whatever now size, if you're a group of 100, it's fine. Okay?
No problem.
You're in a chama of 100 people. That's a very good merry-go-round. You receive one after every 100 months.
It's like 5 years.
It's a good one. But how do you talk to Jubilee to get this? You can text the word health to 40643. That's health to 40643. Or you can call them 079 949 000, 079 0709 949 000, or go to the website jubileeinsurance.com. Our next conversation is going to mirror what's has been happening in the country for the last couple of weeks. And this is the public rising and saying, you know what, we the people, cognizant of this being our country, unhappy with how the country is going, desirous of a better country, now therefore go to the streets to speak our mind and exercise our sovereign will. And we're seeing what's happening, changes that are taking place in the country. But there's a line. There's a line, and there are cautions. Let's talk about those ones. We are joined by a special presidential envoy for the President of the Republic of South Sudan. His name is Albino Matom Ayuel Aboch. He is our guest. Good morning, Albino.
Good morning to you.
Welcome to the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, and I'm here to talk.
Karibu sana. You have many names, bwana.
Yes,
Albino, Mathon, Ayuel, Aboch.
Typical African, but just the name of albino, but not the albino of the color.
Okay.
I'm a black man, you can see.
He's a black albino.
Yeah, black albino.
Okay. Karibu sana City.
Yes.
Welcome him with the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the island nation of Sao Tome and Principe. A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
A devil with fine manners can only carry you to hell.
It's better to have sincerity of purpose,
Yes.
to deal with honest people, than to have a deal with the devils.
Very good.
Very good.
The interpretation is good.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very good indeed. Yes.
So you've been in the country. You are special envoy for the president in the talks that have been taking place. Tell us about those talks. What are they about?
Well, we got our independence in 2011, and 2 years later, we fought. We fought each other between the president and the first vice president. But nevertheless, it started when we have a sudden death of late Dr. John Garang Demobior. And President Salva took over, and he has to manage the internal affairs, and we have at hand to have an independent, so he have to also manage Omar al-Bashir so that we can have an independent. So there are a lot of things going on internally.
So why did you fight? Why did the war break out in 2011?
It started like the way it started here in Kenya. When president and the vice president have an issues, Salva Kiir, the president of the Republic of South Sudan, and Riek Machar have a political disagreement, and Salva Kiir dismissed his deputy, Riek Machar. And Riek Machar went and set up a group, and he started the uprising against the system.
Since then?
Since then, it has been off and on. The war started in 2013. We reached an agreement in 2016 in Addis Ababa, and then another agreement in 2018 in Khartoum. Then we have the roadmap, which is the extension, and we are likely to go for an election or to have another extension by the end of this year.
Okay. So we're not looking at a situation whereby the people of South Sudan had an issue with leadership, but we're looking at two factions of leadership that were not agreeing with one another, and that's why we have the current stalemate that we have. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, but in a different way.
Okay.
And this is where people have to be cautious here. When you start a problem, it never ends. For example, I'll give you an example about Sudan. In 1989, there was an uprising against the elected Prime Minister, Sadiq al-Mahdi. And Sadiq al-Mahdi, some people took an advantage, and the military came in, Omar al-Bashir. And Omar al-Bashir, another uprising in 2019, and it was all out. The military again took over, where the two generals, Mohammed Hamdan and Abdurrahman Burhan, disagree, and the country went to a civil war. So there are some issues sometimes. You have here and there, some will take an advantage and utilize it for the benefit of themselves instead of the nations.
So the people may have an issue, for example, like we saw in 2019. People have an issue and they come out on the streets and they are protesting and they are demanding change.
Yes.
But then that process was hijacked, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Because we ended up now having, the caretaker government, then moving back into a military leadership, and then the military A and military B from wherever they are. Now they're fighting, and the country again is up in smoke.
Yes, remember, it is start in a very good will, like simple to what is going on in Kenya. But somehow, somewhere, somebody is taking an advantage to use that for the benefit of himself. So the military came in and they refused to hand over the power. And that is not only in Sudan. It have happened in Egypt in 2011 when the uprising started. Fundamentalists came and hijacked the system. They won the election. Then the military came and took over the leadership, and they refused to hand over the leadership until today. General Sisi. And also in 1991 in Somalia, when Stagberry, the uprising started and the system collapsed until today. And it also, I can go on and on in Yemen. Ali Abdullah Saleh, the uprising against Ali Abdullah Saleh, and the Houthis, which are the allies of the Shia, took over. Also in Syria, when you have the two religions in Syria, it is about religions. So you have the Shia and the Sunni, and 5% of the Alawin, which are actually allies of the Shia. So Sunni are 85%, 15% are Sunni. Then 5% are Alawin. Alawin, they are the minorities. The late president, who is the son, his son now is leading, Hafez al-Assad. So Bashar al-Assad made an allies with the Shia in Lebanon, with Hassan Nasrallah, and he refused to hand over the power to the people. And some individual took an advantage, and Syria has never been the same until today. And I can go on and on and on and on.
You make an extremely valid point. When you say people take advantage, are these faceless people? Are they people who are known? Are they people who are in a group and representative of a certain, not necessarily ideology, but a certain interest that they have? Are they people who are within the country? Are they people who are outside the country?
When you have an enemy, enemy does not come from far away. If I am your enemy, I must know you. So it has to be somebody who know you to go against you. If I don't know you, I won't go against you. So in the real sense, yes, people within.
You know why I asked this question? Because I'm looking at the examples you've given. I'm looking at Syria, and I'm looking the moment it becomes a religious issue, or at least religion is mentioned, then you will find mentions of individuals or countries now saying this country is supporting this particular faction. You mentioned Lebanon. The country of Qatar has been mentioned severally in some of these incidents. Say, these governments in the Middle East are supporting this. America has been mentioned. The Russia Republic has been mentioned. Iran has been mentioned. These countries are mentioned whenever there's some of these conflict. And again, I said, when religion becomes a subject and is part of, or is said to be part of this conflict, there's always someone from outside who is helping those who have an issue internally.
Yes, you might be right, but it starts from...
Yes, it starts from home.
It starts from home.
Yes.
Then now the viewers and those who have the sympathy on the left and right and the middle, so people will start to take a side. For example, started here by the young people, the youth. But those who are now stealing and taking the staff, and some parties from a different politician are now talking about it. Do you think they were part of it from the beginning? The answer is no.
No, they were not.
But you will now start to con yourself in. Where is my interest here? Where do I go from here? For example, you have talks about Qatar and US and Russia. All these countries, each country have an interest. America have an interest. Russia have an interest. Qatar is a very small country, but having the higher GDP in the country, in the region, they play also a role. It could be a role of the religions or affiliation on some others, political interests. or economic interest. For example, in a special when the uprising is start, for example, in Middle East, started in Egypt, it went to Tunisia, and to some part it went to Algeria, never succeeded in Algeria.
It went to Libya.
It went to Libya. For example, Libya was a better nation than the current system today.
Yes.
The uprising came in not through the individual, but it was an uprising from the external.
Yes.
Who actually have an interest. Political, economic interest, to get rid of the gentleman, the late Muammar Gaddafi. And they have succeeded, but they haven't calculated what was going to be the next. And Libya
has never been the same.
And never been the same. And for example, Sudan has never been the same. Yemen has never been the same. Iraq has never been the same, and so on.
I'm curious as to, with what's happening in South Sudan right now, and if we're going to draw any kind of parallels, which I think we can do, where is the voice of the people in a conflict which seems to be between the leadership? I mean, the old adage of, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers, and that's what we see happening here. But what is the voice of the people when it comes to this conflict that is so clearly evident between two leading characters here?
What I can say is better to have a peace than to have a war in the country.
Indeed.
And what we are trying to manage our own affairs now, to put our house in order so that we can talk about the institution, better infrastructure, build the nations. To build a nation, it is not easy. It took about 50 years for Kenya to have a constitution which they are enjoying it today. But nevertheless, if that is mismanaged and you use the way of anarchy, it never ends. And that's why we are trying to get out of it. Since 2013 until today.
You've been trying to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Looking at you, Albino, and I don't know how old you are, but clearly I think I can correctly guess that you grew up in a civil war in South Sudan. This thing started early in the 80s in a civil war between the North and the South, seeking independence, got independence. There are generations of people in South Sudan who don't know anything else. They have just seen conflict upon conflict, rays of hope. We are forming our government, conflict. We have reached an agreement. We have some pieces coming, conflict. Back and forth, conflict. Do those people ever sit back and ask themselves, what would we like better? Because all we seem to hear, I guess that's a question that Ndu is asking. What we seem to hear always is the voice of the political leadership. And those are the ones who are in conflict. Are the people in conflict?
To answer you, it is not me who grown up in the war. My father grown up in the war. The war started, we got an independence in January 1956, when we were colonized by Angola and Egypt and British and Turkish. And people of South Sudan in 1947, before the independence, have asked for the right of the self-determination. But that was denied. So we are literally pushed backward. Some of the Southern Sudanese were Islamized and Arabized by force. So it wasn't easy. So we grown up in a war. I was born in a war. I'm likely to die even. and conflict will continue to move on. What I want to say, dear, when there is a problem, you don't hear about the voice of the people. You hear about the warlords, those who are fighting. And that's why it is to be a little bit cautious. We love Kenyan. Most of Southern Sudanese children are going to school here in Kenya. Similar, some Ugandan come to Kenya. East and Central Africa region, Kenya is a favored country where your children and you can feel free to live. So do not mess that freedom up, please. Us, for those who know better.
But then here's also the other parallel, Albino, that in what is happening in the country right now, it is the citizens who are speaking. And for a long time, yes, there was citizen rising, but they had the leadership of some established political leaders. Even in the push for the second liberation, it was political leaders who had political office who were leading this, academicians who were leading this, people who were joining the civil society. There was some structure of a group of people who were in the lead. Now, we don't have that. Not those in civil society are in control or directly. Not those who are in the political structure and establishment are directly involved. Not those in academia are directly involved. It's the ordinary Mwananchi who's involved in this. Now, what are the dangers there?
Well, I will talk based on what I know. I can't talk about the Kenyan affairs because I'm not a Kenyan. I'm not qualified. I'm not the right person to talk about it. But I'll talk based on what I know. For such freedom to reach to where it is today, somebody, somehow, somewhere, have to pay the price for it. And it means, Kenyatta came for 18 years, and Moi came for 24 years.
Kenyatta was 14.
Kenyatta was 14. Yes. I'm sorry. 14 years. But I thought he was a prime minister and then he became a president. Yes. So he put it together. And then you have Moi and then Kibaki, and then now Uhuru. And now you have Ruto. Yep. So the system have been actually properly set up. And somebody somehow, somewhere have fought for it, for the citizen to enjoy the freedom they are enjoying it today. Nevertheless, the citizen have a right. And I believe President Ruto have done very well to listen to the people. I can give you several countries where even to demonstrate is very difficult. Yes. So I think, seeing he has listened to the people, now the people's voice have been heard here. It is up to the people for the young people to be given an opportunity so that they can test also the leadership in the country, how hard it is or how nice it is. Maybe they may say, let us test the soup, and then they will take the entire pot of the soup. And they will be like the others who were there. So I believe it is a right thing, what President Ruto have done, to listen to the people, and let's hope the right will of the people will be implemented accordingly and prevail.
Let's take a break. 28 minutes after 9. Our guest today is Albino Aboch. He is the special presidential envoy for the President of the Republic of South Sudan, President Salva Kiir Mayardit. He's been in the country. He is part of those who are advising in the negotiations for...
No, I'm the head of the government delegation for the peace talk.
Head of the government delegation for the peace talk that's taking place in Nairobi.
Absolutely.
And looking at...
I'm leading about not less than 10 ministers.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. 10 ministers.
Yes.
From the government side.
Yes.
And how many from the other side?
A lot.
Many
from
more.
The opposition, yeah.
Okay. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Business news with SpiceFM.
This is the business news brought to you by Standard Bank. I'm Edwin Lisamir. A new survey shows that digital fraud schemes are on the rise in the country, with 80% of Kenyans having been targeted in the first 3 months of the year. The TransUnion's Consumer Power Survey shows that 72% of respondents who reported being targeted by the fraud scheme successfully avoided falling victim, but 8% didn't. Phishing or fraudulent phone calls to extract data is the most prevalent scam, as cited by 45% of respondents. Money or gift cards comes in second at 44%. Phishing, which encompasses fraudulent emails, websites, social posts and QR codes intended for data theft, has risen by 3 percentage points to 36%. Olive Hospitality, an independent hospitality management company in the Middle East and Africa, has signed a management contract with the owners of the Alloy Bar and Lounge in Nairobi. The agency has earmarked a pipeline of 80 hotels in the Middle East and Africa to collaborate with by 2027. The 2,700 square meter outlet, which can host up to 1,000 guests, houses, among other facilities, a restaurant, VIP area for private dining, nightclub with live music and entertainment, and wine lounges. That's the business news. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
How do I improve my credit score? For repeat borrowers, 1. Repay all loans, credit cards and mobile short-term loans in good time with discipline. 2. Deal any old accounts, keep them open and active. If not required, then have them closed by the bank. 3. Consider consolidating your debt facilities. 4. Get a handle on bill payments. For first-time borrowers, do not shy away from borrowing with the bank and repaying in good time to build a good credit score. Financial tips brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
SpiceFM Business.
Hi, nataka kuona doc. My child is unwell.
Sure. Will you be paying cash or insurance?
Cash.
That will be 1,000 bob for registration and 2,500 for consultation.
Okay, give me a moment. Wow, I don't think I have enough. Bro, si sort me na 1K. Nimepeleka mtoi hosi na niko short.
Pole sana. Mtoi ni msiko wapi?
Nitakushow baadaye. Niaje hiyo 1K?
Aki sina kitu on me sahi. Hujawahi consider health insurance?
I've been planning to, but finances zimekuwa tight. Don't wait for the unexpected. With Jubilee Health Insurance, we mind your health for you. And you can rest assured knowing that you're covered for all life's twists and turns. From doctor visits to emergency treatments, chronic conditions, and even wellness checkups for your family, parents, and employees. Jubilee Health Insurance has you covered. And to top it up, they offer budget-friendly options to suit your pocket. To get covered, visit www.jubileeinsurance.co.ke or text the word HEALTH to 40643 today. Jubilee Health Insurance, your number one choice for all health insurance solutions. Live free.
Sit back, relax, and shika a world of hit TV shows and movies with Showmax. Shika all your favorite local hit TV shows, including a host of new Kenyan shows this year. Shika more of the greatest international hit TV shows and films. And shika great cartoons and shows for kids, all from just 300 shillings a month on your phone, tablet or smart TV with Showmax.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
Kushika Showmax, download the Showmax app to your phone or tablet today. Shika hits na Showmax, streaming for Africa. Sign up on showmax.com.
A little bit of traffic just left coming into the CBD. This is coming off of Pangani and then out towards the Globe Cinema roundabout. We're looking at traffic also on Gong Road and Landis Road, still chock-a-block, bumper to bumper as you get towards Kamkunji. But I think that's the most of it for this morning. Through the day, we'll keep checking things out, and you can talk on SpiceFM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
26 minutes to 10. Our conversation continues with Albino Aboch, who's the head of delegation at the peace talks for South Sudan here in Nairobi. Special envoy for the president of South Sudan, leading the the government delegation here. We are talking about what we are seeing in the country and looking at lessons from around the world. In the break, you told us you've worked in the African Union for many years. You have studied the global, also just looked at peace and negotiated in several conflicts as well. In Kenya right now, what we have is a leaderless movement. That's what it's been called, right? So people say no individual leader who's come out to say that he or she is the one who is calling the shots here. And what we've seen is a movement that is, somehow organizing, somehow coming up with issues that they say that these are the issues that we want to see, somehow saying that we want to see next steps being taken, push for IEBC to be constituted, push for the reorganization of government, push for this and the other, and there are various voices. At what point would that lose momentum, lose steam, or lose direction from your experience looking at everything else around the world?
Thank you very much. The issue of they don't have a leader, I don't believe it. For example, I was a special envoy of the African Union in 2014 for Central African Republic, and the peace was negotiating here. Was negotiated here in Nairobi. I was the head of the AU delegation, and by then the chief mediator was the former speaker, Kenneth Marende, deputized by General Monike. So I'm a little bit very familiar with Kenya politics. You can start something and you don't know where it will end. Let me give you an example about 5-6 countries in Africa. Central Africa. Demonstration is started in Central Africa against former President Bozizi. And it turned to be against the Muslim and Christian, Anti-Balaka and Seleka, without a leader. But later on, 6 months later, Bozizi emerged leading the Christian. Ditoja emerged leading the Muslim. And that's what has brought the civil war in Central African Republic. My wife is from Mali, from West Africa. Abu Bakr Keita was the president of Mali. And one of the youth made the uprising against Abu Bakr Keita. And they said they don't have a leader, yes, they are calling for A and B, things you are talking about it. But it ended up, somebody somehow, somewhere was pushing to take over. Assem Quetta, the current president of Mali. And that's what happened in Niger. The head of the presidential guard took over. In Burkina Faso, the head of the military intelligence took over. In Guinea-Conakry, the head of the presidential guard took over. In Gabon, the head of the presidential guard took over. So it starts with an emotional aspect, but it ends with somebody somehow, somewhere was planning for it. So it should not be misled.
So essentially what you're doing, if you apply that same logic here, is that even with what is being called a leaderless movement, where there are very, very, very many people in terms of number, that we see manifestation of that come out into the streets of Nairobi, into Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, around the country, and they say, you know what, these are all people who have pain points, and they've come together on those pain points, and they're asking a government to be accountable. What you're saying is that there could be somebody who comes in and takes advantage of the situation and places him or herself at that position of leadership?
Yeah, I want you to take a little bit of research on Mali. The Imam Dicko, you can write that, claimed to be the leader in Mali, Imam Dicko. The current Imam is currently in jail in Mali. The Imam Dicko.
Dicko is in jail?
Dicko is in jail. Yeah. Okay. The one who was
saying he was
the leader and all this.
Yes.
And this gentleman, Assem Quetta, came from the northern Mali, and he took over. And he is now, in the name of the public uprising, all of them, in these 5 countries, none of them have hand over the power to the people.
They have stayed on.
Absolutely.
Albino, how did they, when they are coming now to emerge as the leaders of these movements, are they accepted by the people? The people who are out on the streets, because it starts with the people in their masses coming out on the streets and expressing themselves and even coming up with a list of demands, while these guys are in the background. When they come to the foreground, are they prompted by people to come to the foreground? Are they welcomed to come, or do they come and forcefully take over the movement?
Start with the people.
Okay.
Start with the people and demands, similar to what is going on in Kenya. Just go back a little bit. In 1979, the Iran revolution started with the people of Iran.
Yep.
They got rid of the king, Zar Shah. But who took over after that? Ayatollah Khamenei. Until today, it has turned from left to right.
So do they come in and then they get accepted by the people? I'm trying to figure out that movement.
By then, the regime, the system of the regime, which got rid of the other's regime, it became the military system. When there is a military system, you don't demonstrate. And there are some, for example, Ethiopia. Start with the uprising, similar to Kenya. They got rid of, after the death of late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, somebody came in, the uprising start. Then Abiy Ahmed took over. Then the Tigrais and Oromos and the Amaras in the northern part were not happy. So they went for the government using the same tactics.
The people.
Yes, the people. But they were crushed. And that's why you can see there is a civil war in Ethiopia. War in Oromo region. War in the Apar region. War in Amara region. War in Tigray region. Don't joke with it, my friend.
You know, his rendition of that particular history is actually absolutely accurate. Because there is, when you have fragmentation within communities, for instance, whether you call it the tribal factor or those who are in the north and those who are in the east, or you bring in religion, even if it's the same religion but divisions within it, correctly, there are always people who sit, observe, and know how they can take advantage of it. And as he says, what we've seen over time is when the military take over, they are loath to leave that particular position.
Absolutely.
The place where they have tried probably is Nigeria. But what did it cost the Nigerians before?
A long while.
Yes, what did it cost the Nigerians before they got there?
I'm very close. Somebody said here is from Nigeria. I'm very close to the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. When I named my son after him, because when I did my wedding, he wasn't. He was there to represent me. Very, very, very close to Goodluck Jonathan. Goodluck Jonathan came from this state called is a Ijo tribe. From I forgot the name of the state.
It is all right. Continue.
It is in the southern
southern part
Bayelsa. Bayelsa state. Came from Bayelsa state. He told me a lot what happened in during the war, civil war, the Biafra war. He said those who were fought during the time of the Biafra war were not there to lead the people, and it have happened with the SPLM, SPLA. Those who were fighting are not now the one who are leading in Sudan, in South Sudan.
Those who pushed for the independence of South Sudan.
The independence of South Sudan. Indeed, I can tell you, the Secretary General, who I'm negotiating with now, was the Secretary General of the ruling party. Two former chief of the staff of the army forces. I'm now negotiating with them, not yesterday, today. And they were in the previous government and leading the government. So I'm talking based on what I know, not based on what I have heard about it.
Have we seen something? I mean, obviously, there's a wealth of experience here. And when you look at different conflicts or different uprisings that led to something else, have we seen the counter? That it is actually possible to have a group of people for which there is no one person who is taking the front and saying that they've actually succeeded. Or are we saying that something like this, which is revolutionary in nature, right? What it will do is that we will birth an idea for which there will be somebody who will come and take up that mantle and lead. Are we saying that this state, where you look at things changing in the manner in which they are, is not necessarily that a leader will come forward, but it is setting us off into a period, or setting folks into a period whereby somebody will then come and lead that particular dispensation? Would we see that?
Well, again and again, I will not talk about a Kenyan affairs because I'm not a Kenyan, but I will talk about what I know. I've given you an example of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Conakry, and Gabon, and Sudan, Libya, and others. It start with a public uprising. The issue there is no leader. I don't believe in it, because anyhow, somewhere, somehow, there will be a leader at the end of the day.
I agree with you. Even now, there is a leader, or there are leaders.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There are leaders.
There's nothing.
There
like
is nothing called
a leaderless movement.
No. It is absolutely a freedom of speech for me.
Yes.
Somebody somehow is talking. So there is a leader, but they are hiding.
But there's this little question. You know, it's called usurping power. But I'm trying to take my mind back in history, or people who usurped power, and trying to see if there are any who usurped power and actually did well for the country. See, like, there are those who would argue, for instance, you mentioned Egypt. There are those who argue that the military felt that the Brotherhood would bring the country to disarray. So, again, their reasoning, not that it's the truth, their reasoning was that if they took over, they were actually helping the country. It's either they're doing it for the people or they're doing it for the country. It is always. But then, the evidence of what they're actually doing can be seen in the actions. Do we have any examples where the military has taken over and the people's lives have actually changed for the better?
I will start with Nigeria, since there is somebody here from Nigeria. In Nigeria, the last military was after Abdul Salam Abubakar step aside. It was the last military. Obasanjo was the former. And then you have the Sani Abacha in 1990.
Who was actually a military president.
And then you have our Ibrahim Abubakar, Babangida, IBB, or how do you call it?
IBB, yeah.
Yes.
And Babangida.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is started in Nigeria, including even the outgoing president, Muhammadu Buhari, who actually was the president.
Military.
Yeah, it was a
general.
It was a general. Yes.
Yep.
So when they took over, they take over in the name of the people.
Yes.
But when they are there in their own name.
The people's story changes.
Absolutely.
Are there
even in the region here, there are some countries I don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
Albino, are there instances where the people have actually agitated and their governments have changed? Not necessarily that the governments have been toppled, removed from office, military taken over, but that things have changed in the country. Whether it's a snap election that's been called, an election has happened, or changes that have happened leading to an election, and then an election happens and the government actually now starts responding to the people's demands. Do you have examples from across the globe?
Not in Africa, but in Europe, yes.
All right.
In Europe, you have the last revolution of the military in Spain. And if you go to Biro, the last military dictator, which was overthrew, public uprising, and then in Chile, for example. But I have not seen
But those are military leaders then being removed.
Yes.
We're talking about a civilian government.
Yes.
And then a civilian uprising of people just coming out to say we are not happy. A government responding to that, and peace continues with another civilian government or same civilian government.
The answer is no in Africa. And if I don't know, then somebody need to educate me.
Okay.
Because for example, you could have given an example in Egypt. But in Egypt, Hosni Mubarak left. Then The Muslim Brotherhood came.
Yes.
Then the military came and refused and changed the constitution. They stay. Tunisia, Zain al-Abidin bin Ali was overthrown by the public, but there has been a lot of change. Left wing, right wing, and the country. For example, high inflation right now going on in Egypt. I don't know if anybody have seen what is going on in Egypt. It's deserved a little bit.
The other side of it could be that, if in all those examples that we are giving, there is a government in place that does not seem to listen, to respond to the demands of the people. Okay? And then you'd have examples where, say, even the example that City gave us earlier of this country here called Kenya, where in the late 80s, the people are rising up and saying, no, we do not like the system of government the way it is. It's a multi-party system. No, we want change. And the leader of the government then, and those in government, the government listens and says, all right, people are demanding. Let me hear what the people are demanding. Let me cede what the people are asking for. Right? Multipartyism comes in, and then you move into a transition of power from civilian to civilian by the people. If a government responds to its people, I see then that would answer what the people, the general masses, are asking for, and deny any other person the opportunity to infiltrate, come and take over and ride this thing to their advantage. True or not?
It's true, as you have put it, but in the real sense, for example, here in Kenya, I have President Ruto answer the voice of the people. You're Kenyan, you have to tell me.
He's responding by and by.
He is showing signs of responding.
Yes.
The example that Eric has given was from the time of President Daniel Arap Moi, where we had a one-party state by law. So he repealed that law.
Yes.
Multipartyism came in. Now, many things happened that had never happened before, but many sectors within the Kenyan community actually started working together. And they worked together, and the eventual outcome was the constitution that we have, what we call the 2010 constitution. Okay? But something interesting also happened. Around us, we were accustomed to presidents, civilian, who take power, change the constitution, then they become presidents for life. President Moi, they adhered to the limit of a 10-year period. 10 years passed, he left. The next president came in 10 years, left. That was Kibaki. Uhuru came in 10 years, left. So a tradition of adhering to those tenets was set. Now, that we can say was set, but the problem was, here you have a situation where it is clear, if I can put it simply, people who are rich just keep getting richer, and those who are poor are getting poorer. And services that are supposed to come to them do not come to them. Now, you mentioned the current president, the current situation that he's in. It doesn't matter how good you are. When economic situations don't favor the majority of people,
Absolutely.
You have a problem, and a very big one. And your response to it will determine whether you stay in power or not. Now, the uprising has to do with people saying we are tired of being taxed when we are not certain where the tax we're already paying, where it goes to. Simple. And a raft of conditions are set. What we now see with the president saying, okay, all cabinet out, that is a step, what you call a step in the right direction. Okay?
That sounds very good, and I wish and I hope President Ruto must and ought and should listen to the people of Kenya, because he was elected by the people. He must listen to the people, and at the end of the day, he's a citizen of this nation. So I don't know what he's up to after.
Dissolving the cabinet.
Yes. But I will give an example a little bit to one of the country in West Africa, Ivory Coast. where a similarity have to do with Kenya, and people went on the street, they demonstrate, and Gabo, or what is his name? The Babo. The Babo of the president of French went against him. He was overthrown, and at the end he was sent to the ICC. And Hassan Ouattara took over in the name of the people. He was going to change their life in the name of the people, and he will be there for only one term, and he will leave the chance to the other generation. Hassan Ouattara have never left power until today, and he ended up changing the constitutions.
Whoa!
Oh, Albino, I hear you, and I'm hearing the things that you're saying. Caution on the citizens who are genuinely pushing for change. That as much as you're genuinely pushing for change, also have your rear view mirrors very, very much working. Because somebody could come and take over this genuine push for change and take it to their advantage.
Absolutely.
And you will end up being the loser. So you've got to have your clear focus as you're looking ahead at what you sure what you want, but also watch out.
Absolutely.
Then the other caution that you have not said but you're implying is on those in government. That watch out. This thing could gather momentum, be pushed, have some internal or external push, and somebody could come and take over this. And the momentum will be so much that it'll drive you off and they will come in. In the end, everybody is the loser, apart from the person who takes
Let
over.
me say that very openly.
All right, say it.
I have been trying to be a little
diplomatic.
bit... Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you an example about Sudan. Not South Sudan, Sudan. When the uprising started with Sadiq al-Mahdi in 1989. And fundamentalists came over. Those of Hassan al-Turabi are the one who have brought Umar al-Bashir to power. Dr. Hassan Abdullah Turabi. Now, Sadiq al-Mahdi and others opposition went behind the scene to work against the fundamentalists. It took 30 years. But that turned to a tribe and religion affiliations. So when you push an elected president out through the uprising, he will go and regroup because he has the supporters. And he will do the same to reciprocate what you don't want to be done to you.
Okay.
That's the example of Sudan. Yes, it is very, very true. And what you say, not only does it ring true, but it is caution at the right time and at the right moment. Because some of these things may seem simple, but they are far more complex, and the outcomes, because what you set in motion, what has been set in motion, one may not actually see where it will go to. The thing about the uprising that we see, which is unique, the going into the street has not stopped even when you find people not in the street physically. Going to the street is symbolic of what it is that many of these young people thought and wanted to see. And the traditional mode of communication with such things, which ended up in people protesting, they have surpassed it. They protest online. They communicate online. They gather online. And the whole of this week, there have been no protests. We had interns protesting. They said they were considerate. They decided not to protest, but they will be back again. I'm simply saying that even as you raise these questions, and you must, and they are important, we are looking at how this is trending. There are individuals who've been in politics who have spoken out, and some of them have been censured almost immediately by the protesters. So your caution may actually find a ready ear in this country, where people are saying, let us be vigilant, let not this thing be taken over.
Yes. This has got to remain a people's agenda. And the agenda has got to be for the betterment of the country, not for people to take over power. Or it's not about the power, it's about service by their government. Albino, those examples and all the experience that you've given us, thank you very much for visiting us today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll invite you now so you can come and tell us about the peace talks and what's going on.
Surely.
Albino Mathom Ayuel Abuch is the head of delegation and special presidential envoy for the President of the Republic of South Sudan.
Spice up your life.
It's 10 a.m.